you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine on Discord.
Yeah, I just got a red banner on my thing as well. Yeah, I got that little red banner at the top said because, oh, it can't connect. Push this little button if you want help.
Yeah, if you start having issues with Discord like that, you may just want to change the server region under the server settings from like US West to something.
Maybe it's a glitch. Well, if I am using cable internet in Massachusetts.
Yeah, if it starts behaving like that, I just recommend just changing the server region to something else. And
All right. Yeah, and now we got this music coming on because that is the new music. So there we go. And yes, Witness of Jehovah, I did realize because I had made a mistake with the whole thing. Because hey, I'm not perfect, I'm not sinless, and I'm certainly not exactly tech savvy either. So, yeah. We have definitely been having some interesting issues concerning the lagging and everything about the thing on YouTube, at least on here. So, sorry if we can't get everything figured out, but we're at least dedicated to getting you the quality of all this stuff. And we see here all this stuff from this Witness of Jehovah, who's already going to be our favorite troll of the evening. And we have Jaden Marker here. Who is definitely very interesting. Looks like he's going to have some interesting questions and some comments. So, yeah! Alright. So, let me just go ahead and unmute myself as we get into the conversation. So, yeah, and also going to slowly turn the music off for that whole thing there. So, yeah, and I'll just put it on standby for when we decide to get ready to head off of the show. But as you can tell, this is Ask Reformed Christian Apologist, and for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, there are about a total of 3 ways to ask a question, and I'm going to show you the banner provided by the adorable little avatar by Small Sandwich from Twitter. And we have these 3 ways. Number 1, you can send your question into the live chat. Number 2, you can join the live stream via Discord. And only those who have the live stream Warriors role will be able to enter. This way we can reduce the income of trolls and people that just want to say racist words to try to get my YouTube channel taken down. So yeah, we are going to make sure that we keep this clean, formal, respected, and everything. So we'll make sure to do plenty of that. Plus, apparently, we keep on getting a voice connection or thing here in terms of like an error. And apparently, other people that are getting on Discord on the server have been having those issues lately. So from what I've understood, this may be an issue with Discord going on at the moment, because I can hear everyone and they can hear me on here. So we'll see what's going on and how to do that. But yeah, so you have that, and then of course ask your questions via the show questions only section on our Discord. One of the 3 ways, and those are your 3 ways to ask the questions on Ask Reformed Christian Apologist. And we are at episode number 102. So we are glad to keep this going and keep on rolling. All right. So that being said, let us already get. Well, we already can tell that the live chat with the witnesses of Jehovah is funny. Just going to read these comments before we get to our guests on here, which we at the moment we have Inu Okami and Religious Fanboy. So let's see here. For Witness of Jehovah, he said, "I'm not a valid apologist. I'm a fake Calvinist who hangs with furries." Isn't that interesting? Someone says, we Calvinists celebrate pagan holidays like Christmas. Calvinists follow easy believism. Wrong. So wrong. Have you not read of this thing called Lordship Salvation? Anyways, let's see here. So yeah, it just keeps repeating that and says James White is demonically possessed. So whatever you say. So there is your few seconds of fame, and we're just gonna keep on going on with our thing here. But yeah, so if y'all want, go ahead and get your questions set up, and we'll keep doing what we're doing here and answering your questions as much as possible. And again, if you want to join in on here, just a message, and we'll see if you can also pass the live stream audition from some of our admins if they are around to do all of this. So that being said, let's go ahead and just drive straight on into here, and then we'll check some of y'all questions in the show questions only on our Discord server. So let's go ahead and start with someone who is new well, he's not new. He's new on the Discord server, but we have oh good lord, Jehovah's guy is already in here. Oh boy, this will be fun. Okay, Inu Okami, welcome to being a newbie on Discord. But you're no stranger to the site and to the Ask RC Apologist scene. So, how are you doing, my friend?
Sound check 1 2.
You are loud and clear.
Oh, all right. I am doing fantastic. I have no real complaints to complain about, other than being an old man.
Right on. All right. So, what is your question today?
I'm a little unprepared. I didn't have a question.
Ooh.
I'm going to have to think about something on the fly.
Well, if you want, we could come back to you afterwards, right? If you want to do that.
Yeah, sure. Throw me on the back burner.
All right. So we'll get to Inu in a bit. Let him have some time to come with a question. Religious Fanboy, how about you? Do you got a question?
Oh, I was wondering if in the time period in between the time of the Old Testament and where the New Testament starts, if the Israelites ever had interactions with Greeks, and if so, what resources would I go to look type of information up?
Where they had interactions with Greeks?
Yeah.
Well, there would probably be the interactions involved with what we record about in the Apocrypha. there are some accounts that are in there where they do have interactions with the Greeks, with the Gentiles. The other thing is the fact that the Septuagint being a translation of various Jewish works and translated by Jewish people that understood, that knew Greek and was working within that Greek community. So those would be some areas to look into, is the Apocrypha, as well as the issue relating to the Septuagint. Those are just two examples, but I'm sure in other areas of history there are various others that are out there too.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. All right, so let's see here. All right, so we got so thank you for that question. So we got to check the questions only section, and all we have here is Jehovah's Battle Army saying, why does religious fanboy sound so estrogen? I don't know, does it really sound estrogen? Doesn't sound like it to me. I mean, that's like your opinion, man. Maccabees isn't the only book of the Apocrypha. So Maccabees is part of that. That's one of those accounts. But it's not the only interaction, and it's not the only book in the Apocrypha. So, yeah. I would appreciate that you keep, number one, these sections to being, number one, relating to questions only about for the show. And second, that you would stop with the insults, because we've mentioned this in the rules. In fact, let me just pull up the Discord chat rules, which includes this thing about no posting anything in the show questions only section unless it's a question. Foul language, trolling, and bullying others will get you kicked or banned. At this point, I'm really considering a ban at this point. So, yeah. So Jehovah's Battle Army, or whatever the thing is now, please pay attention to the rules, or you will be kicked or banned from the server. Because it's not hard. It's just like 4 rules. It should be easy to follow. Okay. So that being said, let's actually check some of the real questions then. All right, so let's get to the top, because we had several people. Okay, we already did technically answer that. Someone said, does masturbation make you less masculine? From Tyga Twist. Not really, but it does. But it is a sin. So it's not an issue about masculinity or anything like that, because both parties masturbate, and it's just the fact that one's sinful. All right, so that's where like the main problem is. So I don't see where the idea of it being that it makes someone masculine or less masculine or not. So James, is it possible to be a really good teacher but a bad debater? Yeah, it is definitely possible to be a bad debater and a good teacher, and then vice versa with the different reversals there. Sean Cahill, what does it mean to be reformed in contrast to the attempted reform of the Protestant Reformation? As in, what did a Reformed reformer believe that a Lutheran reformer did not? Well, there'll basically be the Calvinist and Lutheran difference, but for the most part, they do affirm almost identical to the different doctrines that are out there that exist. So that would, to me, that's really what we're dealing with. So that being said, I mean, it is what it is. And I think that when it comes to Calvinism and Lutheran, Reformed people, that, the main disagreements is, of course, the extent to a degree on the atonement, somewhat on the total depravity thing, though there is a lot more connected in that than we'd like to usually think. So yeah. So really, there's not much to go off of in terms of the difference, other than probably Lord's Supper. I think that would be one of the other things I would say is key there. All right. Let's go before we go to the people in the live chat. Because Inu said he's got a question prepared. So Inu, what's your question?
Okay, I was just thinking about this. I know it's in many Bibles. Like there's the Good News, there's the NIV, there's the King James, there's the Catholic ones, the Christian ones. Maybe even the Jewish. What do you call it? The Torah.
Yeah, that's just the first 5 books.
I was thinking about something probably really irrelevant. From the birth of Jesus Christ until he was I don't know what to call it, a young child or a young man.
Mm-hmm.
These missing years, and then they came back to him to when he was just about to get crucified.
Mm-hmm.
What's with all those missing years? Is that just irrelevant? I mean, I would think that the entire life of Jesus Christ would be relevant.
Right, and it just depends on each of the different authors, because note that some of them just focus on the birth and then they just go to an adult. Then there's actually one, I think it's in Luke, where it focuses on his teenage years, because it shows them going into the temple and he runs away from, or like gets away from his folks and is actually teaching to rabbis in a Jewish temple. So we have that one aspect. The main thing is much like with some of the other biographies, that just these different gospels and their authors are focusing on certain key points to relay a certain message that they're trying to get across, and they just didn't view for them and how they were approaching it with their intent and everything to be relevant to the matter. Like, for example, Marx is trying to be more like, put yourself in the shoes of the apostles, or as a skeptic that's in that area, how would you react if you had seen all these things and nothing much was explained to you? Matthew provides his as a background and a insight for Jews, so his gospel is more fitted for Jews in explaining the gospel and the good news and the deity of Christ and everything. Luke is writing more of a historical point as a historian who's gathering information from eyewitnesses, and then John's gospel seems to be dedicated to those who are Gentiles that are believers. So you have all these different approaches that the gospels are taking, and there's got to be a style to it and an intent with regards to that.
Okay, so I mean, I guess different Bibles go into different timelines of Jesus Christ's life, more or less.
Right, and even some don't even cover everything. Like they just, for one, will just go over one event. Another may cover the same thing, but then another one has a different event that wasn't mentioned in the other gospel.
A little more in depth here and there, and then the other Bibles are just for quick reference. And all right, I think I got it.
Well, glad I was at least able to help out a little bit there.
It's because I really thought there were like, I don't know, 20, 30 years of the life of Jesus Christ that were just missing. I'm like, what?
Well, it's something that definitely had me concerned and worried about for a bit. So I definitely don't blame you for having those kinds of questions, because I try to look into it myself. So thank you for your question, though.
Alrighty, thank you.
Huh? Oh, no problem. All right, so let's see here. All right, so we are going to now check on those in the live chat on YouTube to see what y'all are saying. All right, so let's see here. Jaded Marker asks, "Hey, RC Apologist, what's your thoughts on pacifism?" So my thoughts on pacifism is, I am a bit of a pacifist a bit. I think that's one thing we should strive for, but I do affirm principles of self-defense to a degree, and I think that others are permitted to do such a thing as well. I think pacifism and versus self-defense is something that one has to make consciously for themselves based off of looking at certain things that's going on. So, hold up. Okay. Just the laundry going off. I heard a clicking of the lock at the door. All right, so yeah, like when it comes to the issues about pacifism, that's something that people need to decide on by reading scripture and having that conscious judgment. It'd be basically like a Romans 14 kind of issue is what I would call it. And if y'all don't know what that means, just basically just read Romans 14 and you'll kind of get the gist from within the first few verses that's there. All right, so let's see. Next, Willie Wirven. What do you think of the prophet that was naked for a couple of years? All right, so the prophet that was, you got to be specific. As I had just got done finishing Revelation, and it's been a while since I would have covered the prophet that was recorded back then. So I don't know which prophet in specific you're talking about that was naked for a couple of years. So if we can get that, then I'll definitely be sure to cover over it. Nicholas Lambert. So this thing's interesting. Since we are created in the image of God, there is nothing higher than God. Would it be wrong to have something lower than God represent us? Say, for instance, a persona. So I'm trying to see if I can actually understand this question. Created in the image of God, and there is nothing higher than God, then would it be wrong to have something lower than God represent us? I mean, I don't think that's meaning that's anything that's being lower or anything. Like, to me, I just don't understand this question here. I mean, if there is nothing higher than God, would it be wrong to have something lower than God represent us? I don't see how a persona or anything else that is lower than God be our representative. I don't see how any of that is logically follows or possible there. At least in light of the Christian worldview concerning the doctrine of the Imago Dei, the image of God. So, the instance of a persona being a representation, to me, it's just a absurd question, and I don't know. And of course, I dropped my Deadpool coat. Dropped my epilepsy medication. All right. Isaiah, he thinks it was. So to me, Isaiah is a good prophet, and I think it's perfectly good that he was able to preach and receive the revelation that he did from God, that he would then have put into the Tanakh in the form of the book of Isaiah. So, yeah. To me, he was definitely one of the great prophets we've had in the Old Testament period. Let's see, y'all. What are your thoughts on 144,000 only being saved? Okay, so this is from the Witness of Jehovah, and we are going to get into that. First of all, let me make sure to pull up my software. So this will only be, of course, for those that are watching us on the YouTube live. We're going to get up the Bible software, and we're going to go to the book of Revelation. So go down there, hit Revelation, which I just finished today. So let's see here. Where did I go that had them at? Because I remember they were mentioned at some point. Oh yeah, here we go. So here's where we see the 144,000, and here's my thoughts on it, because it's going to be going straight to the Bible and the biblical response towards it. So when we go here, notice here, the number of them that were sealed of the tribes of Israel is certain numbers. This is just the highlight. This is not actually part of the biblical text, but it will show you what we're talking about here. Because note, here we go. And I heard the number of them which were sealed. This is Revelation chapter 7, verse 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So the 144,000 belongs to those who are of the tribes of the children of Israel. So meaning of the tribes of Israel. So of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. So each of these are 12,000. So that of the tribe of Judah, that of the tribe of Reuben, sealed 12,000. The tribe of Gad, the tribe of Aser, the tribe of Nephthalim, the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000 again there, the tribe of Simeon, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Issachar, the tribe of Zabulon, the tribe of Joseph, and the tribe of Benjamin. So all the way from Revelation chapter 7 verses 4 through 8, there we have the 12 tribes that are sealed for salvation. So these tribes contain 12,000 people that are of the elect of them tribes. And these are basically 144,000 Jews of the tribes. And those are the people who will be the elect that are going to be sealed for redemption, sealed for salvation, as even John Gill points out, and therefore could be sure of the exact number, which did not depend on his sight, and telling them in which some mistake may have been made. But he heard the number expressed, which is a square root. So he's talking about all these numbers here, and this is about the issue of holding their doctrine and of salvation. So all this that we're dealing with that are sealed for salvation is there. And I see here that we have somebody that's joined us. J. James. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Have you ever heard of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No, I've not heard of Darth Plagueis the Wise. It's a new one to me.
I figured not. It's not a tale the Jedi would tell you. Darth Plagueis.
Oh boy. Here we go with the nerds.
Doggone it. I'm trying to remember it. Let me see. I have to look it up.
Alright. So there we go. So yeah. Alright, so there's the answer to the guy's question. So let me go back to the banner here. Alright, so thank you for your question there, Witness of Jehovah. Alright.
Oh, I found it.
Oh, what'd you find?
But the joke's passed, so it's out of timing.
Nah, that's fine, man. Alright. Oh, we definitely have someone that's interested in looking at this, the Jehovah's Battle Army guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Let's see here.
Yeah, he's been having some fun with the YouTube live chat. Alright, so let's see. Alright. Okay, so Jaden Marker asks when this will be the last one before we just go back into here. Since you mentioned John Gill, would you agree with his view of eternal justification? I mean, as long as like eternal justification being the view that we are eternally secure in our salvation, then to me I think that would be it. But as far as eternal justification goes, unless there is something that I haven't heard of regarding this, because I'm looking at some other ones that are on here about the specific term, and it seems like you have Abraham Cupid, A.W. Pink, John Calvin, Francis Turretin. So let's see, let's just quote from Pink, and I don't know where this one comes from. It's just simply saying the quote. Some of the older theologians would expound on this doctrine contend for the eternal justification of the elect, affirming that God pronounced them righteous before the foundation of the world, and that their justification was the actual and complete remaining so throughout their history and time, even during the days of their unregeneracy and unbelief, and that the only difference their faith made was in making manifest God's eternal justification in their consciences. Okay, so concerning that, I would disagree with then this defined view of eternal justification, because I believe we are justified by faith. And if, according to Pink, these theologians believe that even during the days of their unregeneracy and unbelief, that they had this, I would disagree with that, because I'd rather go with what the Bible says. And the Bible is clear that it is by faith that one is justified. We are justified by faith apart from the works of the law. And one doesn't have this justification according to this and unbelief, because then you have no faith and therefore you don't have any justification. So therefore we can't hold to, at least concerning what the Bible says and teaches, eternal justification. We have to hold to eternal security, but not this doctrine known as eternal justification. All right, so thank you for that. All right, and now we're going to get back in here. So, and I got to make sure to add another name to the list. I just saw it. J Jabs, okay. So, oh yeah, and I got to make sure to turn off my phone alarm so that way we don't get copyright music playing in the background. All right, so 8:50.
Oh, did you? I assume you answered my question earlier. Is it possible for somebody to be a really good teacher but a bad debater?
Yeah, and I essentially just said, yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I was wondering.
No problem, man. All right, so let's start off with the first come, first served order, which is Inu, Religious Fanboy, and then James. So, Inu, how are you doing again? And whenever you're ready, you may fire at us with the questions that may destroy, retain, or something towards me. We'll see how it turns out.
Are you there, Inu?
Yeah, Inu, you there? He may be AFK at the moment. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, he said that in the, because I was on show questions, he put this in general. He said that he's got to leave his computer for a few minutes. He needs to do something downstairs, and I'll be right back. And he typed that at 9:16, and it is 9:28. So he apparently got to take care of some stuff there. So we'll come back to him in a bit, and just go ahead and go straight to Religious Fanboy.
I was just curious, were in Revelations, were the 7 letters to the 7 churches, were those to specific areas, or like advice or messages?
Repeat that again.
In pertaining to Revelations in the letters to the 7 churches, were those written to specific churches, or were those written as messages and advice to those different types of churches?
Well, concerning this, that the book of Revelation is written down. He's saying, write in a book and send it into. That's where we get it. In Revelation chapter 1, verse 11 says, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. Actually, let me also, so that other people can see this as well, to pull up on the online Bible on YouTube here. So it says, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, and what thou seest, write in a book. So he's revealing this stuff to him. Write it in a book and send it unto the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, unto Smyrna, unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, Sardis, and so on and so on. So the 7 churches, so 7 areas with the 7 churches. And I turned to see that the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. So essentially what we see in verse 11 is that it is saying, write this in the book and then send the book to the 7 churches. So in a way it is kind of addressed to us. At the same time, he did say that the purpose of it is that as he writes it, he has to send it to the 7 churches because it is addressed to them in a bit.
Awesome. Thanks.
No problem, man. Thank you. All right. So let's see here. All right. So James. All right. Let's get you your question, and then because Ina just got back, we'll then get him next.
Okay. Shoot. I don't really have much to add. Just figured I'd come join the chat just because, 1, to help moderate everything, and 2, just to hang out.
All right. Well, at least we got some moderator.
Actually, I do have a question. What is a good study Bible that's really good with its exegesis?
Okay, so a study Bible that would be good with exegesis. To me, I think the ESV would be a good one, based off some of the notes. The NIV Study Bible is also another one that's good that can demonstrate a different way of going about things. And to me, it would be pretty much any of the King James, CSB, however you want it, the Holman Study Bible. Because I've noticed the footnotes from those things are very good, and the stuff they have and the graphics are in good color as well.
Okay. I was also thinking possibly the John MacArthur Study Bible. Would that be a good one too?
The John MacArthur one's another good one too. I definitely would recommend his just his individual commentary series that goes into it in a lot more detail. But the study Bible is also pretty good.
Okay. I was curious about that. So I'm looking to possibly get something. Although I have a whole entire textbook that I got from my wife's grandma's house. That's on the whole Old Testament, and it's got questions and answers. It's pretty much a student, like a seminary textbook, and it's just like, holy cow, this is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something, that's for sure. All right, thank you for your question there. All right, let's get on over to Inu then with his question.
Alrighty. I thought of one while I was downstairs helping my mom. When did out the fish and the bread to the people?
Okay.
What did the bread and the fish represent?
Good question. Let's head there right now. Let me see. Fish and... I know that's somewhere in John, or no. Well, it's actually in multiple places. So let's see here.
I think it was like 40 loaves of fish or 40 loaves of bread or something.
Yeah, well, John, and we'll go to John 6 because I know that one definitely is the more expositating of it. But you can find it in Matthew and in Luke. But for this discussion, we're going to deal with John chapter 6. So I'm going to turn in the software to there, and I'm going to put that on the screen for those on watching us on YouTube. So let's take a look here. So let's see here. Let me first of all find out where the verse starts at. All right, so starting in verse 5 here, he lifted his eyes and saw a great company unto him and says, Whence shall we buy bread that these may eat? And this he said proved to him, for he himself knew what they do. He knew what he would do. Hold up. Bless me.
God bless you.
Thank you. Philip answered him, 200 penny worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, saith unto him, There was a lad here which hath 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes. But what are they among so many? And Jesus said, Make the men sit down. And there was so much grass in the place. So the men that sat down and numbered about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves. When he had given the thanks, he distributed the disciples. And the disciples to them which were set down, and likewise the fishes as much as they would. And when they were filled, so after they had gotten their fill, he said unto them, Gather up the fragments that remain, so that nothing may be lost. And keep in mind, every word of this is going to be significant here, concerning why they were then, getting the fragments that from the food, so that nothing may be lost in this. So it says, Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. Then those men which they had seen the miracle of Jesus said, This is the truth of that prophet that should come unto the world. Meaning the prophet, this is from Gil, by the way, that Moses spoke about in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15, that the Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, thy brethren, like unto me, unto him that shall hearken. But the ancient Jews understood the message of the Messiah through the modern ones applied to others, though modern ones applied to others. And these men concluded that Jesus was the prophet, the true Messiah, because of the miracle that he had done. So concerning this, it mostly just seems like at the moment that they're feeding, just simply. But we could try to examine it much more clearly if we can take a look elsewhere into it. So let's see. We get to the issue about the fish. So let's go around here to the verse 9. So in terms of the bread, we can obviously see for some instances of the loaves, because Jesus talks about at least bread later on in the segment about the bread being his body. But then that makes us have to wonder then, what about the small fishes? So according to Gale says there were 2 in these small. It is amazing that the 5,000 persons should everyone have something of them, and enough these fishes seem to be what the Jews call, and it has a Hebrew word there in which the gloss interprets small fishes. And by the word which is used of them, they seem to be salted or pickled fishes, and it is very probably these were, Nonus calls them fishes which were broiled or perhaps dried in the sun. So then it goes back to Luke chapter 24, verse 42, says they gave him a tiny piece of broiled fish and a honeycomb. So the issue is that it doesn't seem that there's really much going on here about, at least with the fishes. But notice that at least with the food, and especially the fact that the bread is being used, that is being multiplied and given out, doesn't seem like much. I mean, because remember, they just have a few bits of food, but it seems like with just those whole things, they're able to continuously feed several people. And it's because of the miracle that Jesus did with, having them feeding with the bread and with the fish, to which, of course, if we keep reading, Jesus says unto them, verse 32, Verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, but my Father giveth you the true bread from heaven. So it's also a bit of a parallel as to what happened in the Old Testament whenever they were receiving manna from heaven, bread that fell from heaven. But he says, well, they all had that. My Father gives you the true bread from heaven. And for the bread of God is he which cometh down from heaven and giveth life unto the world. And then verse 35, he says, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. So notice here, we had the thing where they were filled earlier, and they were able to be filled, and that bread could keep coming back. And whoever has the bread of life, then in this connection, he that cometh to him shall never hunger. So we have Jesus as the bread of life, and those who come to him shall never hunger. It kind of can go back to that whole thing where it's like, if you still even have some scraps, you can still just keep getting filled based off of the fact that you're, refilling the food, that you're refilling in such a miraculous way. And that's what happens with the issues of Jesus. That with the bread and the parallel that we're seeing and his teaching and his exposition on what happened, as well as Old Testament, that's where we can draw that application. That's how Jesus would draw that application concerning that. So not necessarily with the fish, but the bread.
I like that. It to me, the way I interpret it and what was just said was that, okay, here's the bread, here's the bread, here's the bread, and out of only a couple of loaves of bread, he fed a multitude of people, which means, to me anyway, it never ends. You can read the Bible from cover to cover. You can read multiple Bibles from cover to cover. It never ends. You'll always be fed from the Bible, or whatever you want to follow. But it never ends. And then the part where he says, pick up the scraps, don't let anything go to waste. Pay attention. That's what I got from it. Pay attention. Don't let anything slip.
Mm-hmm. Right, and it's also that he is, that, because remember that about the bread of life, that, the bread is his body and the wine is his blood. Talk about that whoever has him, salvation being in him, in Jesus Christ, meaning you will be satisfied in him regardless of the sufferings that you go through, that he alone is sufficient enough to get through on things. So that's why we are, in the toughest of times, we pray to God, and we hunger for knowledge and wisdom. We go to the Word, especially to Jesus' words, and then having our faith in Christ gets us in strength and spiritual strength through our days. And so that's the one thing that's definitely there about it, that he is the bread of life, and that we're no longer just simply dead, but that we're alive and we're able to keep going in strength and move on with our faith being so strong.
Absolutely excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go on mute and let the next person ask their question now.
All right. Thank you for your question, man. All right. Let's head on into the live chat, which I see Luna is in the chat. So if Luna wants to join in via the Discord, so let me see. Yeah, I don't see at least her thing online on Discord at the moment. So, and of course, Jehovah's Battle Army is having fun in the chat because we just saw a vocab alone is an idiot thing. And so it makes me wonder if this guy's a Hebrew Israelite, but though I don't think so because they have a different way of pronouncing it instead of Jehovah. Like they say Jesus is Yahawashai. So depends on the people. So let's see here. Going back to Nicholas Lambert on his question, if we are the image that represents God, what would it be wrong to make an image, say for instance, a persona that represents us? Or should the only thing that represents us is ourselves? So I don't think that it's sinful to have persona, in other words, having persona or having a fursuit that would have a representation, because it's not necessarily a representation of you, it's a representation of a bit of your a character that you have, and that you're just portraying the character, no different than voice actors and the characters that they have. Whenever someone has a persona and they have a character they're acting out upon, they're just acting as that character and all that. It's not an idea of necessarily representing them. Some try to do so, and even then, it's not in the same context as the issue about the image of God and the representation of God, or God representing us, or any sort of that kind of stuff. Nowhere in that same kind of context will you find that being there. Okay, Isaiah chapter 20, verse 2 through 4. At the same time spake the Lord by Isaiah, the son of Amos, go and loose the sackcloth from thy loins and put off the shoe, and did so walking naked. Okay, so let's go to that passage and examine it. So for Willie Ryvern. So we'll go into Isaiah. In chapter 20, verse 2 through 4. So actually it seems to just be there. It says, and the Lord said, like as my servant, he walked naked, barefoot for 3 years, for a sign and wonder upon Egypt and Ethiopia. So notice, in the year that Tartan came unto Ashdod, when Sargon of the king of Syria sent him, and fought him against Ashdod and took it. So he did this to, and notice, in Gill commentary is also mentioned as a token of mourning, which the prophet wore as Kamichi thinks, meaning one of the Jewish interpreters of it, the rabbis, because of the captivity of the 10 tribes, because they were in a bit of a captivity state, and may also be also on account of the miseries that were coming upon the people from the Jews, though some think that this was his carmine garb, and the same from the royal garment that the prophets used to wear, as is noted in Zechariah chapter 13, verse 4, but that he had put off, and had put on sackcloth in his room, or in its room, which he is now bid to take off. So keep going to 3. So he's looking and doing this for 3 years for a sign and wonder upon Egypt and upon Ethiopia. So shall the king of Assyria lead away the Egyptian prisoners and the Ethiopians captives, young and old, naked and barefoot, even with their buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. So, I mean, I think we've got it clear that this is, again, the work of a prophet that is going on here, and I don't know why specifically it was asked about this, other than, to me, I don't see any problem with this. So, yeah. He attacked Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses are part of a cult, so I don't see where that would be problematic. And so I'll tell you what, actually, let me see here. First, let me get us back to here. I see. I don't know why I didn't hear a beep thing go up, but I see Luna has joined us, so it reminds me to at least put down the name for Luna on here. All right, so there we go. Welcome, by the way, Luna.
It is I.
And welcome aboard.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Luna.
Hey, fanboy.
Alright, so let's see here.
So, what's the topic this time?
Oh, we're just doing Ask RC Apologist, so I'm just taking in some questions, and I actually was about to ask James. James, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm gonna audition to this because I don't know if he wants to come in or not. So you see that thing that says live stream auditions?
Wait, me?
Yes, you.
Oh, yeah, I see live stream auditions.
Alright, so let me see here. We'll see if he actually comes there, because if he does, then I'll send you to check him out to see if he's a troll or not.
Okay. Who is it now? Jehovah's Army? Battle
yeah,
Army?
Battle Army, aka the Witnesses of Jehovah. Because so far I thought, because this would be an interesting if we actually do have a Jehovah's Witness that comes on here, because he's definitely states some stuff, like he's talking trash about vocab Malone on here, and you should have seen some of the other stuff that was just said a bit earlier.
I'd say that the word Jehovah is a mistranslation from the King James Bible, but what do I know?
Right. So we'll see if he actually gets to make it there, and we'll see what happens.
Let me know when I should go to the live stream audition to check it out. Do you want me to go there now or just later?
I'd say later. We'll see if he actually just decides to join in there, because I don't see him, at least not at the moment, online. So we'll wait and see if he makes it. But you'll be able to talk to him and all that. Okay, so let's
give me a set of questions.
Well, just simply just ask him some stuff that you feel would be essential to determining if he's a troll or not. So,
that makes more sense, because I was thinking like asking doctrinal questions, but that wouldn't help anything.
Yeah.
All right. I'll ask just some. Hey, what are you doing here? Yada yada yada.
Right. Okay, so let's see here. I saw Luna said "sup boy" with the I, so that means she knows how to properly pronounce the word boy. Let's see, RC, okay, let's see. Well, he could be jealous of vocab being his name, possibly his rapping skills, his renowned research on the Black Hebrew Israelite camps like GOCC. Oh my goodness, this guy, man, I think I may have a new friend here, Jaden Marker, because like GOCC, IU, I think it's IUIC, unless there's something I'm not familiar with, and it's ISUBK. Alright, so, alright, Bob YNH. Alright, so there we go, we have a question here from our friend Bob, which, wait, let me check something, did I not, let me see if I had gotten him the thing. Yeah, he's a live stream warrior too, so if he wanted to, he could come on here. And I just realized there's also show questions that I haven't necessarily gotten to yet. So I have to get to Extra Stick and Bad Moogle in a bit. So let's see here. All right, so it's so Bob says 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 11 and 12. My question is, if God is against adultery, why would he be an accomplice to adultery and force a woman to commit it? All right. So let's go there. 2 Samuel chapter 12, starting in verse 11. I'm going to pull it up on the screen and then take my medicine. All right, so let me first of all take the pills. Which, by the way, since I just talked about my epilepsy medication, I don't know if anyone saw the video of the people on VR chat. Someone actually triggered an event after hacking into it to give everyone on their headsets this photosensitive imagery to try to actually trigger a seizure, and someone actually did, and he recorded it. Yeah, and he recorded it while laughing.
Oh dang!
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not cool.
Oh, yeah. And so you can guarantee you that somebody's trying to find the account and get that person banned, because that's like, as someone who's experienced it before, that's literally trying to kill somebody.
Yeah.
That's really messed up.
Yep, very messed up.
One-way ticket to you know where.
There you go. All right, so let's get us onto the Bible up here.
Mexico?
Well, oh boy. Okay, before we get on that train. All right, so here it is. So 2 Samuel, just to put 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 11. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of his son, of this son. For thou didst it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. Yeah, so what we're seeing here is, again, a punishment that is being done against a specific individual, of whom that we're dealing with here. So Nathan said to David, Thou art the man, thus saith the Lord God of Israel. I anointed thee king of Israel out of the hand of Saul, and I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wife into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord? So, David, you had despised the commandment of the Lord, and so you did to do evil in his sight. Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. So notice what the whole thing is here that's leading up to it. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thy house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. So because you have committed adultery, remember and the other thing is that he will pay back, and it's usually the eye for the eye thing too, in one aspect. So it says, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this son. So take the wives, and here's Gil's commentary on it, which is so expressed because it was done in his lifetime, and he knowing it, but not be able to hinder it, though he did not strictly speak and see it with his eyes. And give unto them the neighbor or friend, meaning his son Absalom, as they were, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of the sun, pointing to the sun in the firmament, and which might be then shining in the room where they were, and which is represented by Homer as seeing all things, and eyes are ascribed to it here in the original. The meaning is that this fact should be done in the daytime, openly, and in the public, and was fulfilled, when by the advice of Hephzibah a tent was spread on the top of the house. So, in other words, this was showing and using this act here to punish and humiliate David, because he decided to disobey God, because he had someone killed so that way he could have the wife. And so because of that, the vengeance will be paid onto him. So to refer back to the question that was addressed by Bob as to if God is against adultery, why would he be an accomplice to adultery and force women to commit it? Well, it's simple, because of the issue that there is a decree that is put out of the judgment, and so that's why there are sometimes other issues where the wicked are then used to declare judgment, and sometimes other acts occur that are still determined. For example, like if God is against murder, why then? Because here's the other thing, and I don't know why he wouldn't have thought this question. If God is against murder, why then did he ultimately decree the murder of the innocent man, the innocent God-man that is Jesus Christ? Because remember, the Bible says that he was crucified before the foundation of the world, and that the plan was predetermined to occur for the sins of sinners, so that they would be redeemed through the shedding of his blood. But that was still a sin that happened in order to have that done. You would have to have committed murder and kill unjustly an innocent person. And that's what Jesus was innocent and was blameless. But yet God is able to use something like that because of what would come about through it. And just like in the same way with what we see in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, which I'll pull up on the online Bible thing here. If we go to Genesis 50, verse 20, notice that in the Joseph, he was sold into slavery by his brothers. Now, we don't have anything here necessarily about this particular trade, but in the New Testament, we do see the issue of man stealing, which is essentially what is defined as being that those who are man stealers, which is slavery by stealing other people unjustly and that sort of such, that would be people that will not inherit the kingdom of God. So, he says, but as for you, ye, my brothers, thought evil against me, referring to when they sold him into slavery. But God meant it unto good to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. So there are times that is used to bring forth a benefit that can save people, in this case with Jacob or Joseph. And then we have the issue of a punishment that is being then declared upon people as well, such as David, who disobeyed the law and as a result had his wives lost from him. And then they would go into their sin. And also, I noticed that Bob has also just entered the stream. So welcome to the show, Bob.
Well, thank you. How's it going?
Going pretty good, pretty good.
That's a question I ran up that's been bothering me for a couple of days. I hear people say, God can't lie because it goes against his nature,
Right.
And then adultery is a sin because supposedly it goes against his nature.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how adultery could go against his nature because who's he going to commit adultery with? There's just him and his son and spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it just seems funny that he's going to use adultery and force a woman against her will because he's going to take her and make her lie with his friends. So he says he's going to take the woman and make her lie with his friends. So he's going to steal the woman. There you go, the man stealing thing, and force her. So God has no problem breaking his own nature, or is the rules and commandments not based on his nature, just based on his arbitrary opinion of things?
Well, it's not necessarily a violation of the nature or anything like he's necessarily doing. The issue is that there's a issue of a decree that which these people are doing. So when he says that I will do this, he's talking about the issue of something being decreed in that regard. So in other words, they're just going to, they're going to forsake him and then go after other people. That's essentially what it's being meant here by that, and that this will be done in the open day by what we had read earlier into that. So going off of that then, which also led me to the other thing, do you believe that, murder would be against God's nature?
Murder is the unjustified killing, right? So people say that, God created everything. He's justified in taking any life he wants.
Right.
So I don't know then that wouldn't be murder in God's eyes.
Right.
But adultery is a different thing, right?
Right. But do you believe that murder is against his nature, right?
Suppose it would be, but it doesn't seem like it because, like you said, he has people murder innocents. So he has no problem commanding people. God or Jesus, they both have no problem commanding people. And then in this story here, he actually takes the woman and gives the woman to his friends to have sex in daylight so everyone can see.
Right, in the same way that the issue is said about Jesus being given over to Pilate to be crucified.
But why would God do stuff that goes against his nature?
It's not necessarily the fact that he's doing. It's not even the fact that he's doing the action. Basically, all that language doesn't mean that it says that therefore God was there physically trying to put and force and crucify onto there. He's given the people into their sinful nature. That's why the people in their rage and hatred of Jesus on the council got him to Pilate and then got him crucified based off of their desires. And the same thing happens with the sin nature of lust being taken about, which again was the part of we're dealing with adultery about these people, is that the wives then go after other men, the other men given to the temptation and fall after them the adultery, and then we see the depravity of that based off of the fact that they're doing this in the public, in the open, in front of David.
No, I mean, God says because David pissed God off.
Right.
He disrespected God, right? Because he did something that God told not to do.
Right.
So to punish David, God says he's going to he's not going to allow his wife to do these things because of their nature. He says, I will take your wives and give them to your friends, your neighbors, whoever, and they will have sex. So the woman had no choice in the matter. He just takes the woman and gives it to the guys to have sex with in broad daylight. So who knows what's going through the woman's mind? If maybe she didn't want it.
The same
maybe
language
all she wanted was
is used elsewhere of situations like, again, Jesus being taken over by the Father to Pontius Pilate to be crucified.
You can't just because the word taken is used. The word run, okay? The word run is you can use the word my fridge is running, I am running, and the water is running. They're all different contexts, right? It's the same word, but it's used differently. So in this point, it says taken. That means it says I am going to take them and give them to your friends.
And he's using that language in the sense of the fact that he's talking about that God has decreed, which is where I keep using that term in the biblical concept, that God has determined all things to occur, including divine punishments, in which the people will obey their sinful desires when God lets off his hold of their depravity, including the fact that the women would lust after the neighbor, and the neighbor would give in. And that's why verse 12 then goes on the extent of this depravity by saying, for thou didst it secretly, but I will do this things before all Israel and before the Son, pointing out that they will be doing this before all the people. And that's why, as the other rabbinical commentators point out to it, that's what it's referring to, is that these people are in their depravity and they are doing this in the open daylight in front of him.
When it says God says, I will take your wives and give them, he's not actually doing that. He's just allowing it.
He's basically let go of the extent of the limit that he had on their depravity, essentially, and has given them to their lust. That's what it means in Romans chapter 1, for example, where he gives them over to their shameful lusts and allows them to live in the depravity that they so desire.
No, I just don't agree with that, because in the context of the whole thing, right, David disrespects God. But God is punishing David. So, and in that verse, he takes his wives and gives them to his friends. A couple verses down, he makes his son sick and kills his son after 7 days. So this is all about God punishing David. It isn't because David, disrespected God, ticked God off, didn't do what he's supposed to do. So he's not just allowing whatever. God is actually intentionally punishing David by doing these things.
Okay.
That's the other part too, because God makes David's son sick.
Okay.
Dies after 7 days, but then there's other verses in the Bible where it says the children not be punished for the sins of the father, nor the father punished for the sins of the sons.
Okay.
But clearly that's not true, because David's son was killed.
Okay, is that another question you want to have for when we come back to you?
Well, no, it's all part of that whole concept in that whole context in there, right?
Yeah, but the question was about if God's against adultery, why would he be an accomplice to adultery? And going on 2 Samuel.
And I just don't. I've been trying to look at it the other way, but I can't see it the way you see it.
Right.
Where God is just allowing them to do things. It's when it says God's going to take them and give them to. It's not give them to their nature. He says, I'll give them to your friends. He says, I'm going to take your wives and give them to your friends.
Right, and that language is used elsewhere of various different ways, and by looking at it, we can understand the context of what it means in the same way, like Romans 1, in the same way of the passages in Acts about Jesus being delivered unto Pilate, and in the context, it seems, by God delivered unto Pilate. And so we have all this that seems to indicate a deterministic perspective on this, of a decree that has been ordained for this action to occur.
So either way, it was still God's intention for them to do that. He created that instance from the beginning before man was created.
Right.
God created that situation.
Right, in the same way.
So
for the
if God
Jesus
created
being
that,
crucified, just in the same way that Joseph was sold into slavery, all that.
even still, then God has no problem with adultery if He's going to use adultery.
He does have a problem with adultery, as is noted in his law.
It seems He doesn't, because He's going to take His wives and do that.
In the issue of decreeing a divine punishment that is being done, that He has decreed that this person falls into the state of depravity and will experience the sin that they had, eye for an eye, as the text of the Bible indicate.
No, see, David, if you read it, and not in the King James version.
I read it in either one. I can just pull it up in the CSB. I can pull it up in the ESV, and it'll say the same thing.
That's where I got out of the CEB, right?
The CSB, which is the more recent translation besides the Passion.
There's more to it. We'll have to get to another day, because there's more to it where it says that God actually gave him the house of is it Samuel? Yeah, he gave him Samuel's house and wives.
Yeah.
And then David does something that ticks God off. So then God punishes him and is punishing him. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't God not go against? He could have punished him any way he wanted to. He could have punished him a different way, right?
Right.
Gave him boils or did something to him, made him lose his house and his family, and made him live on the street for 7 years, which wouldn't go against his nature. But instead, he decides to go against his nature and arrange a situation for adultery and killing of his son.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, the CSB says, "I'm going to bring disaster on you from your own family."
The one I'm looking at is the Common English Bible.
Yeah, the Common English one.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at anyone, but this is just one I pulled up. It says, "This is what the Lord says: I am making trouble come against you from inside your own family. Before your eyes, I will take your wives away and give them to your friends."
Mm-hmm.
But it's God saying what He's going to take his wives away and give them to his friends. It's not that He's allowing things to happen.
Right, and in applying a hermeneutic that is consistent with every single passage that reads like that, including the ones that I referenced about Joseph being that God used that slavery instance where Joseph was sent into slavery, that He used that to bring about good, to save lives, as well as Jesus being sent to the cross by God.
I can understand David maybe using the David thing, right? Because God didn't command those guys to kidnap David, right? Those guys did that on their own. Here, God is an accomplice. He's taking his wives and giving them to the friends.
Well, no, that's the thing. It's
different than,
according to Joseph, he is indicating that God was an accomplice, because he says God used it for good. That because of this slavery, being sold into slavery, everything from that point was decreed to lead to that moment, that without him being sold into slavery to get there, tons of people would die from a famine unless Joseph was there from that method that he was put at. Hence why Joseph said what he said in Genesis 50:20 after his brothers tried apologizing for selling him to slavery, and he told them, "Dear brothers, do not be sorry. What y'all did for evil, God used for good," revealing the true ultimate power force behind it. And then the same is said for the crucifixion, for the atonement.
I don't think it's a good explanation, but
right.
I don't want to hog up the whole show, right?
All right. So don't worry about that. We'll if you got another question though, we'll get back to you. And thanks for that question. Definitely something that the show definitely needs to hear. And thank you for asking.
All right.
All right, so we'll get to you because I think that's about everyone that we had got. Let's actually, wait, did we get to? No, wait, we were actually in the middle of your thing on the live chat then. So let's see here. No, I did not hear the news about Kenshin. You might want to clarify on that then, because I'm curious. Jaden Marker, would you say Piper's view on future justification is the same as eternal justification? I haven't really, I keep hearing a lot of things that his is very controversial, but no one has been able to explain his view, like, easily, like, what it is, his view on future justification. So if someone could explain that to me, maybe that would be something that I could respond to and understand, because I've heard his view of justification got pretty controversial at one point due to something he wrote in an article. So let's see. Now let's get to a bit of the all in the show questions, because we had a couple of people ask during the thing. Extra stick. How do you interpret the passage about tongues in 1 Corinthians chapter 14. Okay, so let's get to that. Online Bible, initiate. Well, I guess we were already on 1 Corinthians. Let's go to chapter 14. All right, so concerning this issue here, following after charity and desire spiritual gifts, but rather that you may prophesy. For he that speaketh in an unknown tongue speaketh not unto men, but unto God. For no man understandeth him, howbeit in the spirit he speaketh mysteries. But he that prophesieth speaketh unto men unto edification, exhortation, and comfort. So far we're going to be pretty familiar with this, and mostly what it's referring to is some of the from verses 1 to 5, and then of course it goes onward a bit to everywhere else. But let's see here. First off, in verse 6, now brethren, if I come unto you speaking with tongues, what shall I profit you, except I shall speak to you either by revelation, or by knowledge, or by prophesying, or by doctrine? So those are the keys there. That except I speak to you about either revelation, knowledge, prophesying, or doctrine. Those are the 4 things that are important when it comes to the tongues. Even things without life-giving sound, whether pipe or harp, except they give a distinction in the sounds. How shall it be known what is piped or harped? So he talks about then the distinction then with musical instruments. So likewise, except ye, this is verse 9, except ye by the tongue words, easy to be understood, how shall it be known what is spoken? For ye shall speak into the air. There are, it may be, so many kinds of voices in the world, and none of them is without signification. Therefore, if I know not the meaning of the voice, I shall be unto him that speaketh a barbarian, and he that speaketh shall be a barbarian unto me. So that it means basically, if you're just saying it and you're not even making much sense, you might as well sound like a barbarian. And it's all about the issue of the spiritual gifts and praying that you would have it. And that's what it is. It's a gift if you have this particular gift of praying and speaking in an unknown tongue, which, by the way, unknown for some of these things is actually in the gray here. So unknown is not really there. So speak in a tongue, which is glossa, which just means another language. So if you speak in a tongue, in other words, speak in a different language, like hola, señor, there's a tongue. That's the Spanish tongue. That's the Spanish tongue there. Speaking Spanish. Or just because if it's a song, du hast mich, that's German right there. So speaking in that particular tongue. All right, so you have to, have that gift in which you're engaging in that. So it's not just, what's that one guy, how he does it? Lord Jesus, get these demons out from this guy because I'm a false prophet. Gotta. It just says gotta over again. That is not a tongue. That is you just speaking nonsense, gibberish. Also like basically sounding like the some of the lyrics in Eminem's Rap God is what it sounds like. So I'm not settled on that being the understanding of what it means to be by tongues. It is another language and is one that we understand. So it's a human language. Hence, when they spoke in tongues, Ethiopians and all these others in Acts were able to hear and understand them. I mean, go to Acts chapter 2, you'll see the story there. And so then we go on to verse 22. Wherefore tongues are for a sign, not to them that believe, but to them that believe not. But prophesying serveth not for them that believe not, but for them which believe. So The one thing I do know that you usually need an interpreter when you're doing this whole thing about speaking in tongues. And they're not to just be some kind of random hoopla or testify, witnessing, all that kind of stuff. It is about being that which demonstrates prophesying or building up edification. That seems to be what we're dealing with here when it comes to what is talked about there about how to deal with tongues and what are tongues for. So interpreting the passages about tongues in 1 Corinthians 14, that would be how I would go about it. So, thank you for your question there. Bad Mogul, how do presuppositional apologists handle people who already believe in a God of some sort, such as in Mormonism, Hinduism, and Muslim? Simple. We engage in it by demonstrating the asking of questions of how then does even the Mormon, the Hindu, or the Muslim have to borrow from the Christian worldview in how they go about some of these things. Let me see. Okay, I missed there. All right, there we go. So yeah, like Mormonism, for example, with having to borrow from the Bible and then eisegeting the Bible. So they have to get to the actual points of what the Bible teaches, and therefore that's where they have the Bible in their canon, along with, the Book of Mormon and the Pearl of Great Price and all these other ones. Hinduism, the same thing, accounts like morality, basically all that kind of stuff. But in the Muslims, their stories they get from stories that we find in the Bible. So again, you can point to all these things, but ultimately it's essential of the battle of the worldview. So when you're dealing with a presuppositionalist, you have to ask questions to question the consistency of the Mormon worldview, the Hindu worldview, and the Muslim worldview for these three examples that you have given. And so I constantly do that with Muslims in asking for consistency about their religion in which I study on, like the issue of the eternal tablets of the Quran in heaven. And if that's the case, that you have these eternal tablets, and that's what was then passed on to Muhammad, why then are there 7 arufs? Why are there 7 variant readings of the Quran, of which do make a difference when you have, for example, and I have one of them on my phone, in terms of the reading of this thing. So, and that way I also have the Arabic, so that way I can pronounce it. In Surah 2, Ayah 184, we have a passage that says, "For a certain number of days, but whoever among you is sick on a journey, then he shall fast like a number of days, and those who are not able to do it may effect a redemption by feeding a poor man." That's in one translation. So the word is miskin, a poor man. But then that's in the Hafs Arabic Quran, meaning that's in what you find in North America, the UK, and various other parts of the majority of the Islamic world. But then if you go to Morocco and Nigeria, you have the Warsh Quran, which the Arabic is different there. It says masakin. So it's not miskin, masakin. And the difference is it's feed, but that to effect a redemption because of the fasting you miss, you feed many poor men. So what is it in order to atone for the fasting and to be redeemed from the fasting concerning your salvation as a Muslim? Do you feed one poor person, as Hafs says, or do you feed many poor persons, plural? All right, so hold up. We got a thing in here. Okay, I guess Cloud Rider already took him there. Oh my goodness, no wonder that this guy did this. So we just got a guy banned from the chat. Fun thing too, because it said theistic blocking me, shaking my head. Because the messages, and I'll mention some of the messages that he's just sent me, because he says, "I can't wait to expose the white Christian lies because I'm a fraud apparently." And he said, quote, "You'll be a slave in the future, Edomite." So guys, I've been told by a black Hebrew Israelite, because I can tell what that language is, that I'm going to be a slave. So, oh, this is going to be fun. So I'm a part of this guy's chat called the War Room. So we'll see what happens. And he says after the stream.
I was watching that whole thing go down.
Oh boy, everyone's laughing. Everyone's laughing with that. So, oh well, we'll see what happens. But anyways, thanks for that. All right, so yeah, I think we'll just end there with the show questions only thing, and if Cloud Writer or James, if you can, like get rid of the conversation, but that since right after theistic blocking me shaking my head from Zephaniah and go on down, because remember we're trying to keep that for show questions only, so that way I can at least read easier who's actually sending in a question here. Okay, so we'll deal with Jehovah's question here because I don't know if he. Oh yeah, so that is a different one. So we'll deal with that one in the next thing. But let's get in here into the Discord here with all the people here. All right. So let's make sure that I got everyone's name down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So make sure I got it down. All right. So Inu, let's go with you since you're the starter in our first lineup of the first come, first served. What is your question, Mr. Okami, who is of Inu? Or should I say Inu-chan, because I am such a weeaboo?
Oh. Well, I don't have a question more than I do have a little bit of a comment.
Oh.
Thing with they discovered the black hole, they got pictures of the black hole, and now there's all these memes going around, and all these people are talking about the black hole. It reminded me of a sermon that I heard in church a long time ago. And the sermon that I heard was because I asked for it. You see, I've been going to this one church in California when I lived there, many years. And for the most part, he kept on, I hate to say this, but he kept on repeating himself week after week. Turn or burn. Right. Turn or burn. Turn from your evil ways or burn in hell. Pastor Ron, can we hear something different? I'm pretty sure there's more in the Bible than turn or burn. He looked at me, he started laughing. And the very next week he started, he opened up the sermon with, and God created the universe. He created the heavens and the earth. He created the sky, the clouds, the sun, the moon. He created the plants. He created the trees. He created the stars and the universes and the galaxies. He created everything that we can possibly know about and everything we can possibly discover. He even created us. And he created us with our own free will, more or less. I don't want to misquote him, but he said something along the lines of, we have our own choice. Out of all the most beautiful things that he's created, out of all the mystical things that he's created, the most, yet we're the ones who choose to follow him or choose to turn our back on him. I was just speechless. I started to cry. I'm like, thank you. And then he went the rest of the sermon. This is the love of God. About turning from your evil ways or burn in hell. It's about, all right, I got a text. It's about the love of God. And I'm going to mute myself so I can see that.
Oh, I mean, that's definitely one thing. I mean, to me, well, turn and burn to ultimately, which to me I would interpret as, to repent, which the Bible does talk about in Luke chapter 13, verse 3 and 5. That's one thing. But I do notice that that's what some pastors and street preachers, they just go there and they don't say turn to where. They'll just repeat it as if it's an overused mantra and really has no meaning at that point. And that's why at least then when you talk about the love of God, that's what I try to do is I balance by saying that, there is a thing where you need to repent. But then when you turn, where do you turn to? Jesus Christ. Why? Because according to the Bible, it says that God loved the world in this way, that he sent his one and only son, so that through faith in him, you are saved. So because we are justified by faith in his son. And so that's the good news.
You see,
there.
that was another thing that I called him out on. I'm like, Ron, all right, turn or burn, turn or burn. Show me how.
Exactly.
So, I mean, after I had a little chat with him, because me and Ron, even outside of church, we were really close friends. And I had no fear of going up to him, how some people go up to their minister and they're a little bit afraid as if he was God or something. No, he's a man just like me. And I'm like, hey, Ron, turn or burn, turn or burn. All right, show me where to turn. Show me how to turn. Show me what I'm doing so wrong. You know what? I'm hearing all this. Turn from your evil ways. I get it. You've beaten it into me. I'm evil. um, give me some meat. I'm done with the little baby stuff. I'm done with the introductions. Give me some meat to chew on now,
exactly.
Please. And sometimes if you're, I guess this is more of a comment than a question. If you ever feel that you're not getting fed in church, this is just strictly my opinion. Go. He is your friend. He is not God. He is the same flesh and blood. He is the same sinner that you are. He's no more special than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Ask him.
Right. That's the thing. We need to make sure to ask them, about those questions about, if it's repent or turn and burn, tell them, okay, where do we turn? And all that kind of stuff. We need to ask those questions. Otherwise, we're just going to be left in the dark guessing and trying to figure out for ourselves where. So, while it wasn't a question, thank you for that, at least. That was definitely something interesting to hear. And I've always had that same kind of sentiment and trying to understand of when I get, people wonder why I sometimes get angry with some of the street preachers we have today. And it's because they're doing it wrong. When I go out and I street preach, I'm showing people how it should be done and that it's done in balance. And it's actually showing what the turn part is too, showing the balance of that mention of God's wrath towards wickedness, but at the same time then how to get from the wrath, and that it's in the love of God and then the mercy of Christ and what he has done on the cross. Otherwise, it's nothing.
I understand that every now and then there were new people in church. There were people who never heard about God, who never knew that there was a church and there was a Bible and there was all this stuff. And eventually he would have to start over at page 1 just because of the new people that was in church. But just don't forsake the people who've been there for 20 years, 30 years. But I like the way you do it. You balance it. You give the baby formula to the newcomers, and then you give the steak to the people who, you know what, we want some meat now.
Yeah. Exactly. So thank you for that, man. All right. So as y'all saw earlier on the screen, if y'all are watching on the YouTube, that y'all have 3 ways to ask the questions: live chat on Discord by joining in here, or by asking in the show questions only. So however you decide to do it, feel free to go about it. All right, it's 9:30 where we're at, so that's about an hour and 30 minutes. So we're going to keep on going and just get through this as much as we can, which, by the way, brings us to Religious Fanboy. He is up next on our question list. So, Fanboy, what you got, man?
Hi, I looked up, I was researching Palm Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I meant to ask, how has your week been? I meant to do it earlier, but I forgot.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
Awesome. I was wondering if Palm Sunday was a tradition that was celebrated prior to Palm Sunday when Jesus went into Jerusalem, and like what were some like good places to start researching like those traditions.
So you're asking about if there was something before the whole thing?
Like if like traditions that were present for the Palm Sunday of Jesus entering Jerusalem, what I guess there was anything that resembled Palm Sunday in the Old Testament?
Well, as far as I can tell, not really. I mean, the main thing about it is that it's his triumphal entry into Jerusalem, and it takes place a week before his resurrection, and that it's dated 6 days before the Passover. So the only connection that would have in terms of something that would happen before then would be the issue about the Passover.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, man. All right, up next is J. James.
Let's see here. What is there a good analogy to describe the Trinity without falling into heresy?
Honestly, in my opinion, that's actually very difficult. The only thing that can be somewhat close is trying to comprehend it, which is explaining it with a tesseract cube. So that would be one thing. But in the concept of trying to explain it with an analogy, it would be kind of difficult, in my opinion, to do it without falling into certain heresies. I mean, best example that illustrates this is the thing about, St. Patrick's bad analogies, where it shows everything that tries to identify it, but you will eventually fall into, like talking, like for example, someone talking about water, how you could find it in 3 forms of water, ice, and then vapor, and then that modalism, because it's turning into 3 different modes. Right, so you'd have 3 different modes, just like in water, it has 3 different forms or modes of it. And then you have Arianism, which is the issue that, according to them at least, that, the Father, who is the true God, the Son being not really that much of a deity, and that Jesus is a created being as a result, and then same thing with the Holy Spirit being another created being instead of them being 3 co-eternal persons. So it's definitely difficult to come about it based off of those things. And the same can be said for things, because I know that those are just 2 of the major ones, but I'm sure there's others that are out there. And there are people that have even had problems with, like, St. Patrick's 3-leaf clover analogy that has come about. And I see we have someone in general chat, RC Sproul Jr. So I don't know who that is. But yeah. So yeah, I think it's definitely difficult, and I can't even think of an analogy that would do justice to the Trinity.
Okay.
So I wasn't able to find that, but I mean, to me, I think that would actually make it more of the fact that we can't fully comprehend God, and thus God's definitely able to act more such as God in that regard. So, but thank you for your question, though. At least we can discuss it and talk about it. Okay, so I see Sproul is Jaden Marker. So let me actually get him to be a live stream warrior and move him to the live stream a bit later. So actually, you know what? Let's try it now. I'll move him right now. All right. So, all right. Let's test his mic first before we go to Luna. So, RC Sproul Jr. You there?
Sorry.
No,
I was eating a
no, you're good.
carrot.
No, you're good. Oh, Jane, you there?
No. All right. So,
Hey, Jane, we can hear the.
let's test this mic first before we go to Luna. So,
Jaden, you're on.
Marcy Sproul, Jr. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Crap.
Wait, what?
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
No.
I was eating a
No, you're good.
carrot.
No, you're good. Oh, Jane, you there?
Hey, what?
All right. Yeah, Jane, we can hear the.
Let's wait. Let me just move them to there and take
That
away.
was weird.
Yeah, I'm gonna take away the live stream role there because we can't. He was on and he wasn't talking, so. Oh, looks like Bob's gonna handle this, I guess. Go, Bob. So we'll see what happens there. All right, so then, until then, we'll get to Luna. So Luna.
Let's see. I had a question before, but I think it was already answered. So I don't want to waste anybody's time. You can skip me if you want, but I do have a question. It's just not related to religion or anything.
It's fine. We'll take anything.
All right. So you like voice acting, as you've showed me, James, as you showed me before on Twitter.
Sure.
And it made me wonder.
Wait, say that again. Uh-oh. Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. Are you there, Luna?
Yeah. The connection is weird.
Yeah, I was about to say, because we were having something that was saying something earlier. Could you repeat that again?
As you told me and showed me on Twitter, I was really impressed by your voice acting, and it made me wonder what kind of character you really like voice acting for the most.
Well, I mean, as far as the video goes, there is a Vegeta from Dragon Ball Super version for the Hero No Hero, but now Studio Horizon team. Occasionally, I just like messing around with voices, though. And as a result, I like one time I went on and just did like Arthur Morgan's voice from Red Dead Redemption 2. So I was like, sure. And like, have you seen Lenny? I'm looking for Lenny. We're part of the Dutch Vanderland gang. And so
I got another question.
So like, there's that. And there was another one I recently I'm trying to do for fun. I was doing karaoke and I just came up with it. It was like, because I had to raise my voice and I ended up doing it a loud pitch. So as a result, I came up with like a radio, like one of the radio people from like the 50s or the 40s. And so like, for example, like, what's the thing? I'll just start reading some stuff out here, like in the Discord general servers, like, I'm right here, we're back now with KRD Lawson, 420 radio station here. Now we're going to be reading some of your comments here in the chat. Sorry, I haven't used Discord really at all. Well, you have to mute the video because we can hear you. Oh, sorry, I believe Discord is updating their servers or something, and that's why we're getting microphone glitches. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the most exciting news of my career. Thank you. Back over to you, Jeff. So, that one takes a toll on me a bit because I almost lose my breath. I have to raise the voice. I see Eno in the chat is saying that he loves it in the Discord chat. But like, but for order for me to do that, I have to have something in front of me because it's hard to improvise when you have to go at the speed and everything. So like, I have to like, let's see here. Christ Receiveth Sinners is a pamphlet I have on me from Walter Marshall. So this would be like the most interesting thing. No, better yet, Does God Rule Everything from Arthur Dent. So reading some Puritan literature here. So here we go. It would be wished that all Christians should understand that which they confess with their mouths when they rehearse the articles of their faith, gathered out of the apostles' doctrine. The confession is brief and in every word very significant and well understood. It would root all heresies out of their minds. So it's I kind of got that thing as an influence from what is it that what is it called? Has Been Hotel, and the Radio Demon character that's on there, because he has that same voice, because that's what his background was. Before then, he was a radio DJ that apparently did some bad things. Someone says I sound like the Prime Minister of Canada from South Park. Oh, I can picture that. So yeah, sorry, I kind of just ran it off there, but yeah, what were you saying?
Could you do me a favor?
Sure. Sure.
Well,
what?
I would love to hear, let's see, how do I put this? Your best bad boy voice.
Oh, best bad boy voice. Okay. Well, that depends. What kind of bad boy are we talking here? I mean, are we talking like the bully in a high school anime? Are we talking hardcore shoot 'em up bad boy? Are we talk what are we working with here?
More like, how do I describe it? Just airheaded bad boy, thinking they're so great, but they're not.
Oh yeah. So let's see.
I guess you could say incompetent.
Right. So. Oh yeah? What you say to me? I'll tell you something. I may not be smart, but I can at least count to 4. 1, 3. You're lucky I'm still in middle school. And I'm 18.
No, Daily
You almost sounded exactly like Cross from Yu Hakusho.
I was thinking Kuwabara.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, that's his name. Crossma is the guy from My Hero Academy that has like the hardening quirk.
Oh yeah, Cross. Oh my god, he's my favorite. Oh my goodness, we went off an anime trail there. But then again, it's fitting considering my character. And someone's asking, more Kurabara. Okay.
Wait. Answer a theological question as Kuwabara. Oh, that would be better.
Hold up. Here's the thing. I technically, it's been a while since I've seen Yu Yu Hakusho, so I only briefly remember how he sounds, but I think, does it sound like this? Because I'm asking for the people that have seen it. Hey, yo, can I get a quarter pounder with cheese? Something like that. Because that's kind of... Because that's how I kind of remember it.
That was hilarious.
I mean, was that right, though? Or did I get it wrong, the voice?
You did good. That was great.
Okay, so I'll try then. All right, so we'll see if R.C. Sproul Jr. can we'll take him after so was that your question, by the way? You just wanted to hear me do a voice? Luna? Uh-oh. Luna, you there? Luna.
Oh, sorry, my cat, he was...
No, you're good.
He was about to sit on my computer, so I had to move him.
Bad kitty. No, wait. Bad kitty!
We call him Stinky Butt.
Bad Stinky Butt! Bad! Not cheesy pits! Anyway, so was that all you wanted to hear? Was just me do some voice?
For reasons.
Huh?
Yes, for reasons.
All right.
You probably know.
Understandable, yeah. Because I saw one thing I saw with that one character you did, and I already did kind of have a bit of a voice set up for at least if that was what it was going to be about that one character I saw in your promo. I already had a perfect voice set out for him.
You do?
Well, based on the way he looks, kind of like, kind of a bit of a demonish kind of vibe, but, things too much of himself, and, wait, the heck you say about me? So, yeah.
Perfect.
So, yeah, there's that one thing. So, all right, so thank you for that. All right, so let me give Livestream Warrior back to him. All right, and let him know. All right. So there we go. Thank you for your question, by the way. Going to, okay, who's next on the list? Bob! Mr. Bob! All right, we tried talking to him, but he's not responding. Okay. I don't know. We'll see what happens then. Again, just remember, by the way, Sproul Jr. to mute the live stream when you come in. So,
Bob.
All right.
Bob.
By the way, Tulip Doctrines of Grace, I know you have a Discord. Why don't you come in here for once? It'd be nice to see this stuff and you defending Calvinism from your own voice. Because I noticed, like, right here, it's like for some of those that are in the chat, they can turn to it in the offline or the off air. His is the one that's got the picture of a meme picture of Paul Washer on here. And bearded one, too. All right, so Bob, your turn with the question.
Wait, Paul Washer meme?
Yeah, Paul Washer meme.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, Bob, your turn for the question. Hello? Let me see if I can.
Crap.
What? James, what is it? Oh.
Oh, we can hear you, Bob.
I can't.
All right.
Oh, wait. I think I heard something.
Hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. All right, so what's your question?
I am not hearing.
All right, so Sproul Jr. is saying he's not hearing anything. All right, so Bob, go ahead and take us with your. Wait. Oh, goodness gracious. That's a bad joke there. And you. Sorry, Bob, what is your question?
Yeah, I don't know. Let me get it. The only other one I was thinking is the other part of that David one, right?
All right, sure. Let's.
Where he punishes the son for the sin of the father.
Right. So let's go there. All right. So punishes for the sin of the father.
Because these are some of the reasons I have a hard time believing in Christianity. That's why, I don't believe anymore, and I got to try and clear these things up. I can't.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I understand. I have the same thing that I'm trying to look into when I'm getting these things.
And there's more than just these. I guess people want to say seeming contradictions.
Right.
But
well, to me, I mean, there are things that would definitely seem like that, and that's why we have to look into some of that stuff, because there's going to be contradictions in almost other different works of literature, and we got to examine it. Because, for example, Okay, I almost thought I heard Sproul Jr. for a second, because I'm looking through the other screens right at the moment.
I think you can hear him. I can hear him typing.
Wait, can you? Because he says he's on, at least on my thing, that he's mute.
I heard somebody type it. No, he's not muted for me. Try refreshing your Discord.
Oh, wait a minute. Do I? Oh my goodness. I still have him on the mute thing. Okay, hold up. All right, hold up. Let's get a check from him real quick to make sure everything's working. Because if I can't hear him typing, let's see if we can hear his voice. Sproul Jr. or Jaden, can you hear us? Okay, we can hear him, but I guess he can't hear us. All right, so I don't know. All right, so we'll just continue onward. All right, so 2 Samuel 12, the prophet tells him, so we already went to that part, and he, of course, goes on toward with the same kind of thing.
Start in like 15, right? Then Nathan went home.
Well, I think it would be the.
And then it goes up.
I think it's 14.
I guess we could start with it, right? We're at 13, where it says, "I've sinned against the Lord." David said to Nathan, "The Lord has removed your sin." Nathan replied to David, "You won't die. However, because you have utterly disrespected the Lord, by doing this, the son born to you will definitely die." Then Nathan went home. The Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had born to David, and he became very sick. David begged God for the boy. He fasted and spent the night sleeping on the ground. The senior servants of his house approached him to lift him up off the ground, but he refused, and he wouldn't eat with them either. On the 7th day, the child died.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me that for the sins of the father.
Mm-hmm.
Because he still had uses for the father. He wanted the father to do things. And he had to punish David somehow, so he made the son die. In Deuteronomy 24:16, fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children be put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sin.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let me write this down.
I just can't figure. I mean.
So you said it was Deuteronomy?
Deuteronomy 24:16.
Deuteronomy.
Go Exodus 25:6.
Exodus 5:6 is the other one.
It's Exodus 20:5-6. It says, "I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations, those who love me and keep my commandments."
Okay.
I mean, there he says he'll punish the children for the sins of the father. But then in Deuteronomy 24:16, fathers should not be put to death for their children.
Mm-hmm.
And Ezekiel 18:20 says, "The soul who sins is the one who will die. The son will not share the guilt of the father, nor the father will share the guilt of the son."
Yeah, I'm seeing some of these now in the Skeptic's Anointed Bible.
This is, rational Christianity.
Right.
But
this is interesting, actually. I don't know why this is there. Because there's on the site, it talks about Christian responses towards these things. And so it has 3 sites. As far as I'm aware, if I'm not mistaken, anyways, that it isn't like the Skeptics Anointed Bible, like a atheist or skeptics website, right? At least as far as
I don't know. I've never read the Skeptics Anointed Bible.
Well, it's a website. It's just a website that because like the main thing.
I've never been to that. What?
Because like they have like a bunch of things like contradictions in the Bible and all that.
Well, I've never been to that site either.
So they have.
I just typed in the Google search the other day. Does God punish the children for their parents? And the Rational Wiki had whatever, I don't know whose site that is, but it's a Christian or atheist or whatever.
All right.
Got a responses by Matt J. Slick posted on there.
Yeah, there's one that's on there by Carm that I see that there's a response. He responded to that, and then there's one from Kyle Butt, Masters of Divinity. So he's got that with a concentration in apologetics, with a master's in New Testament studies. And it's on the topic of, do children inherit the sin of their parents? So I'm definitely going to have to look into this one for sure, because that one was kind of something I was trying to look into as I was, because it has it here, just not that one as well, but because of what we see in the Torah. We also have Jeremiah, the one you brought up in 2 Samuel, Ezekiel being another one, because Ezekiel came up whenever I was trying to get reading through the Old Testament, and that one did come up. So there's definitely some stuff I'm going to have to look into, and I'll get back with you on that. But I want to make sure that I look into it before I give you a response, and so that way I'm not just making stuff up out of thin air. So,
I mean, just at the plain text reading, with us just sitting here looking at it without looking up, apologist or atheist responses.
Right. Not necessarily that. I'm
Your opinion.
Is trying to look into
it seems
the text,
like,
and yeah, face value, it looks like a contradiction, just like with anything we can look at face value. Like at face value, I can see something like the car flying down the road the car is flying just at a face value reading. So I want to see
I wasn't actually looking at it.
If everything in it ultimately leads to an error of something, then hopefully that's what we're trying to get to and figure out. Rather it be like
I wasn't actually looking at it as a contradiction. What I was looking at it is well, the way I was looking at it is like with the last verse, right? The last one we just talked about with the adultery thing. And then I'm looking at this one where God's going to kill a child for the sin of the father.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's looking, it's more of a description of God and Jesus at this point, right? If you believe in the Trinity, that they're the same person, and Jesus is supposed to be all loving, but in the Old Testament, he had no problem killing children for the sins of the father. It goes against the concept of what people claim God is, If people want to claim, because most people claim that God is, omnibenevolent, all loving,
right? Which they have to properly define that.
But then, yeah, well, all loving means all loving, right? So,
right, which is why sometimes I don't
anything that would.
To me, like just personally for me, I don't even think that there's anywhere in the Bible that talks about that attribute in terms of being like an an all loving God, because we see plenty of verses in the Bible that talk about God's hatred. In fact, there's even a passage where he says that you have sinned against me with your words, and the people ask, how have we done that? And he says, because you say that God does not abhor the wicked, only their sins. So basically saying that God doesn't like the saying, God loves the sinner but hates the sin, which is a popular slogan you hear. So there's plenty of verses about God being a God of wrath, and in fact, if you read the first 20 Psalms, you'll see nothing but God's wrath all loaded all over the place within those first few Psalms. No, first 50 Psalms. So you have a lot of the stuff about that, and in fact, the love of God is rarely mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament, as is pointed out by a British Bible teacher by the name of David Pawson, that if you were to look over the whole thing, like for the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, the word for love only appears once. Some of the books don't even mention it. And the main book that contains it the most times is anything written by John. And his is written towards believers, and the context indicates usually that in regard. So that's the one thing that we have to usually consider about that. And so that's why I would have some questions about how some people perceive the love of God being like nothing but this marshmallow gumdrop God, instead of what we will find in the Bible, that he's not someone that's always pleasant in terms of how we want him to be, in other words. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'll take a look into it and get back with you on those passages about it.
Thanks.
No problem, man. Let's see here. All right, so thank y'all for those questions. Let's see if we is there anyone that asked oh yeah, Jehovah's Battle Army is there. One example of a Bible verse that is often misused is John 1:1. The King James Version, that verse reads, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God." The Greek, ton theon, and the word was God, theos. This verse contains 2 forms of the Greek noun theos. The first is preceded by ton, the, a form of the Greek definite article, and in this case, the word theon refers to Almighty God. In the second instance, however, theos has no definite article, was a definite article mistakenly taken out. So let us go over this one. Actually, this is the first time since we have made the transition over to here that we are going to be doing all of this from we're playing an audio clip here. So let's see here, Lutheran satire, because the Lutheran satire channel actually did something where they went over the definite article about John 1:1, and so let me see here if this is. All right, let's see here. Just making sure it's the right one. Okay, yeah, this is it. All right, so we're just gonna look at a brief. We're gonna play a little bit of the thing here, where it's Patrick and that's Donald and Connell learn that Jesus isn't divine, which is a parody because of the issue of where they're about to learn from these Jehovah's Witnesses about the whole thing about John 1:1. Oh wait, hold up. Yeah, I figured he may have left. Sorry about that. Okay, one thing I want to point out, Theistic Logos says the article was left out because hos theon means the God. The word was with the God, Father. So if it called the word hos theon, he would have been saying Jesus was the Father. So there's one thing to point out with him there. So let's see. Let's go over. I'm just going to play the audio here so that some of y'all can hear this. So here we go.
Patrick, so apart from this, you have to call God Jehovah bit. Are there any significant theological differences between us? Oh, no, nothing major. Just a couple small things. Like what? Like Jesus isn't God. Wow, you're really swinging for the fences at warmed-over Arianism stadium there, Patrick. Yeah, Patrick, go hell or go home, I guess. So tell us, O deniers of Christ's divinity, what do you make of John 1:1, which states, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God"? Actually, the correct translation is, and the Word was a God, which only proves our point. For more information, please read some of our literature. How dare you, Patrick? What? You're talking to a couple of 5th century Irish peasants here. You know good and well we're both hopelessly illiterate. Yeah, Patrick, quit pamphlet shaming us. Wait, you can't read? Not a word. Now let's dive into the grammar of John 1:1 to address your terrible translation. So, in Koine Greek, there is a series of words for the definite article known in English as the. However, there's no word for the indefinite article a. On account of this, whilst translating, it's common to add the indefinite article before a noun if the definite article is missing. For example, Matthew 5:14, you are the light of the world, a city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Exactly, and there's no article before theos in John 1:1c, which is why we translate that section as, and the Word was a God. So clearly John is saying that Jesus wasn't the God, but was only a God. In other words, a very holy but lesser being. Except he's most clearly not saying that, Patrick, which you might have realized if you hadn't dropped out of Greek 101 after 15 seconds and ordered a power bomb the Nicene Creed. So let's dive back into the text. The text that you can't read. Yeah, that's the one. Now, in Greek, nouns have declensions, which is a fancy way of saying that nouns change a bit based on the function they serve in a sentence. For example, when the word silver is the subject of the verb in Greek, the word is argoros. When it's the object, however, it's argurios. This is boring. Yeah, I know, Connell, but we gotta slug through this stuff to refute the Jehovah's Witnesses. Gibraltar's whippersnaps. Whatever. Now, things get a wee bit tricky on the declension front when it comes to the verb to be, which is known as a linking verb. Now, as opposed to a regular verb which connects two completely different nouns, a linking verb connects two nouns which are essentially the same thing, such as the words I and Spartacus in the sentence I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. No, I'm Spartacus. Because of this, both of the nouns joined by a linking verb will be in the nominative case, making them both look like the subject of the sentence. But in reality, one of them is the subject, and one of them is what's called the predicate nominative. This is boring. So in a language like Greek, where thanks to declensions, you don't have to place the subject before the verb to identify it as the subject, how do you figure out which word is the subject and which is the predicate nominative? By and large, the answer is this. The word that features the definite article is the subject, and the one that doesn't is the predicate nominative. So, Patrick, in John 1:1c, what's the verb? Was. Exactly, a linking verb. And what two nominative case nouns does that verb link together? God and Word? Precisely. And which of those two nouns has the definite article? Word. Which means that's your subject. So the reason John doesn't include the definite article with God in 1:1c is because that's how you say the Word was God in Greek instead of saying God was the Word. Ergo, John is emphasizing the divinity of Jesus here, not denying it. Okay, but that's not like a universal rule of Greek grammar. No, it's not. But since lesser gods is a concept completely at odds with every syllable of the Bible, and since Jesus is clearly identified as God in John 20, Colossians 2, Matthew 1, and Titus 2, to name a few examples, it would be absurd to translate this text in such a way as to indicate that Jesus is stuck running resurrection picket rolls on the junior varsity God squad. Yeah, Patrick, even the simplest of readers can perceive the hilarious hugeness of your heresy here. But you can't read. That's correct. So you couldn't tell me what this is? Nope. Or this? No idea. How about this? Well, if I had to guess, I'd say it's Ryland's Library Papyrus P52, the earliest known copy of John's Gospel with a section at chapter 18, verses 31 to 33 on the front and verses 37 to 38 on the back. Either that or a book about Harriet the Moo Cow. Yeah, it's anybody's guess.
So, a lot of lengthy stuff there, but as they point out, even though it was boring, I figured that at least with that information being out there, that there would still be something that Mr. Jehovah's Battle Army would at least be able to hear from that, as well as some of the people that are listening. So, yeah, not much different than the usual. Like sometimes I rant on about 5 minutes anyways with trying to respond to something. So we'll just leave it with that being the answer going off of the issue with the Greek there. All right, so there we go. Thank you for your question there, Jehovah's Battle Army. All right, let's get to some of y'all in the live chat, because apparently we have gotten a very lively chat. Wow. I got to look back and see where the heck we are. So let's see here. Okay, question, because we're seeing a lot of conversation between Tulip and some of the people in the chat. All right, so because Tulip said he had a question and I don't see it. Every single person. Couple others. Sorry, Ken. All right. So I don't see anyone asking a question on there, so we'll just repeat this and show this up again because we have 50 minutes left. So folks that are watching, if you got a question and you would like to submit your question in, you can either submit it into the live chat. You can join the live stream via Discord. Only those who have the live stream Warriors role will be able to enter. So if you want to join and participate in that, make sure to ask me for the live stream Warriors role, and we will get you in. Also, ask show questions only. The show questions only section will be where you can also submit your questions in there. So feel free to take about this however you want to proceed it. So that being said, let's go then. Since we don't have people here on the live chat, let's go. The audio.
I got a question.
Hold up a second. It says the audio on this recording is extremely quiet. Let me check something real quick. Oh, he was, I guess, referring to the video from earlier. Okay, apparently it had something to do with the phone thing, which apparently that was be typical with Connell and Donald. Oh, well, but we'll figure out with something on how to get to it. Either way, there's a video for it. But, yeah, you said you had a question.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to put the thing down and listen to you while I go over to the window and smoke a cigarette.
All right.
What is it with some religions that they're forbidden from caffeine or sugars, coffee, tea, and my phone is beeping at me? What I mean, like, is it gonna take them to hell, or is it more of a healthy thing for them? Like, I think it was the Mormons who are absolutely forbid the caffeine, the sugar, the soda, the coffee, the tea.
All right. So what was the other one?
Is it going to take them to hell for having a little soda, a little Coke or something?
All right. So it's mostly like caffeine.
Yeah, it's caffeine and I believe sugar, refined sugar.
Okay. So let's try to go over some of these then. All right. So
I'll stick here instead of smoking a cigarette,
all right, so
because that's evil too.
So let's go over the Mormon one. This is what I'm looking at from the MormonWiki.com. There was a long-standing debate among Mormons as to whether caffeine is permissible or not. Among the health code Mormons follow, known as the Word of Wisdom. The following quote is one of the few statements from the leaders of the church on the subject of caffeine, which, according to the whole thing, from what I looked into on Mormonism, that is one of the people that is, that's where the doctrine comes from. You listen and obey the words of one of these leaders of the church. And this one comes from the 1972 Priesthood Bulletin, which says, with reference to cola drinks, the Mormon Church has never officially taken a position on this matter, but the leaders of the church have advised, and we do now, specifically advise against the use of any drink containing harmful habit-forming drugs under circumstances that would result in acquiring the habit. Any beverage that contains ingredients harmful to the body should be avoided. So there, of course, will be, going to the studies of some, things in caffeine, which you'll find out with about anything. Like, for example, I found, which just kind of disgusted me, that there was a picture that was shown about what happens if, like, you drank, like, a bunch of sodas, and it was a picture of the kidney with a lot of the stones, like, the kidney stones and everything, all of it being in there. And that's, of course, if you take too much. Now, but the fact is that, having those can have the chance that those would form. They're basically wanting strict 0 chance of them forming. So the best way to do that, though, of course, is to avoid it completely. But as Bad Moogle has pointed out in the Discord, he was a former Mormon, and he says that they don't believe it's going to take them to hell. Only apostates and fallen angels go to the outer darkness. But the violations of the words of wisdom, which is where we get that issue there about the hell thing, is grounds to not issue a temple recommend, which is required to hit the highest level of heaven. So they don't necessarily go to hell, but they believe it stunts and kind of ceases their spiritual growth. So there we go from a former Mormon. As for Islam, which they do have a ruling on that, here's from Islam question and answer. And this one here says the source comes from Sheikh Abdullah ibn Jabrin. Someone asked, can caffeine be considered as haram, which is, forbidden, not allowed for Muslims, since it is considered alkaloid and is in the same group as nicotine, cocaine, morphine, LSD. Also, excessive intake of caffeine can cause restlessness, insomnia, heart irregularities, and delirium. And the guy doesn't even really respond with he just responds with a paragraph. And he says the following, quote, praise be to Allah, undoubtedly anything that is harmful is haram. Hence, Allah forbade alcohol because it affects the mind, and smoking is forbidden because it causes widespread harm and diseases. It is also known that there are permissible drinks which do not cause harm, such as coffee and tea, which usually do not cause harm and are usually drunk for relaxation. So there's nothing wrong with drinking them. And there are other good drinks such as milk and fruit juices. If some of these things, which are nowadays known as refreshments, cause harm, then they should be considered an extravagance. So those are the things that is to be considered based on what they're getting this. And they'll, of course, go to the Quran for this, which I'm surprised that they didn't do it here. Because normally Islam QI does that. But
all right, so more or less, it's almost like it's an addiction kind of thing. You put that before you put your faith. I was just telling one of my buddies, because once in a while I like to go off the grid. I like to just leave the cell phone, the radio, the TV, everything, and just go off the grid for like a week, maybe 10 days, just so that I don't become dependent on it. Because what happens if I'm, in the middle of the forest and I get a flat tire? Well, there's no cell phone reception. I can't call AAA. So I learn how to change a tire. I don't know directions. Learn how to read a map. Pencil and a paper never need battery. So, I'm guessing this is the way I'm interpreting it. This is the way I'm getting it from you. Don't drink the stuff that causes habits for you to say, I need to have this or I'm not going to function. Very addicted to cigarettes and coffee.
Right. And so that seems to be it too. Is like it's about the addiction thing, but it's also about some, like I mentioned with the kidney stones and everything, anything that they believe is carbon physical that would cause any sort of harm in general, regardless of the context of it, whether it be mental or physical, then they would believe that's something to abstain. And that seems to be what we're getting, at least with two of the religions that would avoid that. And I guarantee you they're probably going to have it with the other ones.
Okie dokie. That, before I put my headphones down, and you probably going off the air before I get back, thank you very much for doing what you do. It's very much appreciated, and I really enjoy the show.
Hey, no problem, man. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So thank you, Inu Okami, everybody. All right, Religious Fanboy, you're up next.
Oh, I was wondering something on that. I uploaded a Bible study today, and I noticed talking about like a premiere function, where it's not live stream, but there's still live chat for when like the video first goes up. So I was wondering if you knew about that process and if you'd recommend it for like encouraging like discussion about the Bible study while people watch Bible study.
Well, I mean, I think that would be something that's good, is to have some people that are like watching it to, talk amongst themselves. I mean, I've seen people that do that actually, that while they're having their study, others are talking in the chat about it with other brothers and sisters that are watching the whole thing.
Thanks. I thought it might be a good idea and worth trying. So I'm going to try to do that for one of the upcoming Bible studies and see how that goes. Thanks.
No problem, man. By the way, I'm noticing someone in the chat. Conan Howard. Man, that's actually a pretty cool looking anime picture there. Huh. Love the town of Salem. Also, and I'm making a book called TOK, The Town of Killers. Come check it out. It's on Wattpad. Also making a book called Pilot. Okay. Very cool. So let's see. All right. And by the way, I keep noticing, I keep getting comments because I shared this one video on my channel from Dawa Man, a Muslim who is basically he kind of thinks that there's a problem with like the Speaker's Corner Muslims, and this video has got like 6,000 views since it's publishing on April 2nd, and the comments are usually from a bunch of the Muslims, and like I get some of them are like agreeing with him, and so like people are saying this guy's an idiot and all that kind of stuff, and the video has gotten more dislikes than upvotes. So it kind of shows you that some of the Muslims are not happy with the truth that this one Muslim is revealing about. It's like some of the people that's being put out on like Speaker's Corner and the other popular Muslim Dawah sites that are out there. It's very telling and revealing, if you ask me. So, anyways, let's see what's next. J. James. James, are you there, my boy? Where did he go? All right. Well, since he's not answering, let's go to Luna. There you are.
What's up?
What's up? Do you have a question? And the answer is no. I will not be cleaning up any of Stinky Butt's mess and hairballs.
The question. I do have one, but it's still not related to religion. I just wish I could ask good questions.
The question you asked earlier was good.
No, was it?
It is to me. So, what's your question?
When it comes to playing roles, like it could be a movie or in a video game, do religious beliefs really matter to what kind of character you play? Like, if you were to play a demon, but you being a Christian, would that be wrong or something? Because I've seen mixed opinions on that before.
Well, it's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because a while back, Vic Mignogna talked about that, because he's a Christian, and there was a character, and I forget what it was called. Because I remember, what was the one? It was a something exorcist, something exorcist, not Blue Exorcist, not to be mixed up with that. Trying to remember which one was it, because there was this girl and then had a partner. So let me see. I'm trying to look at. I just literally typed in anime exorcist movie or animes out there. So Blue Exorcist. Yeah, no, get out from there. And of course, it's not on here. But there was something that I saw, and it was basically, Vic Mignogna plays a character that's a demon. And that's not the only thing he's done. He's actually played a ghost / demon of another thing, though his name isn't under the role thing. He went with a pseudonym. So he went with all that. Then he basically described it like this: it's an acting character. You're obvious. For example, like this: if we're going to hold the idea that if you're forbidden to do that, then a lot of pastors or Christians are inconsistent at this point. And here's why: you got the passion play or movie. You got somebody that's going to have to do that. There's one thing that's going to have to be done. Somebody's got to be Judas. So whoever becomes Judas, does that mean that in real life it parallels that somehow they're going to forsake God or betray Jesus in their future? No! I mean, come on, people. The issue is that you're playing a character and you're just portraying how they would be. So, like, for example, for me, I actually did play a demon in high school. I played a demon. It was the devil and Daniel Webster. So I was the devil. And I would, just be like this very obviously sketchy guy, act, crazy and all that. Because that's how I pictured the devil would be. He acts a bit like a freak. He acts a bit, charming at times because he's trying to trick people. And when things don't go his way, he throws a bit of a tantrum because that's how he is. He just is upset and mad that things don't go his way, which to me parallels with how I view it, with how God would interfere with the devil's plans and make sure that he doesn't always get his way. And so that's how I wanted him portrayed, because that's how I would have viewed it as such. And that's basically what you're doing. You're just representing a character. None of what the character does represents you, because obviously there's going to be differences in that. So there's nothing wrong, and I don't think there's anywhere in the Bible that says anything about that would indicate it's wrong. So to me, Christianity has really not much of a say-so on this, because all it is you're having a character. And as long as you don't really legitimately believe everything that the character does, you should be fine. So, like, some characters are killers. We've had actors portray as killers. Are they going out committing serial murdering killings? No. The answer is no, my child. No. So that's where we gotta always ask where the heck they get this logic, and that's about these other actors, and then of course ask about the people who decided to act as Judas during the Passion play or the Christmas play for the church. So to me, that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Yeah. I share all your opinions on this, by the way.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the question. Let's check back on James, because we tried getting to him earlier. His thing is on orange. It says he's idle at the moment. James, are you back? I almost am tempted to do like a James, like like with the whole snake thing from Metal Gear. James. Just. Then again, I'm not tempted because I just did it. All right. So let's see. Oh, Conan Highwoods. Or Conan Highwoods. What about Flat Earth? What are y'all talking about? Okay, I guess y'all talking about something. All right. So again, we're not having anything in the live chat. Let's see.
Did my bad questions scare everybody off?
Nah, I don't think it was that. Because mostly it's Bob, Ken, Wildheart. They seem to be having a argument and discussion back and forth, and that's what's occupying most of the whole thing. So let's see here. Of course, no new show questions only. But I see Sproul Jr. though. He did say there's something in the live chat, and I want to make sure that I did get it, because he's asking if I did answer it. So we'll see where we're at. Unless, because I see Inu is typing, unless Inu has another question. Oh, he does, but it's silly. Go ahead. I'm in for silly questions.
Going on what Luna just said, I don't know if I'm saying her name right.
That is. That's it.
Do you think it's a horrible thing if, let's say, I got married, had a kid, and named him Judas? You mean?
Technically, not really.
Mom is a hardcore Christian, and she goes, I absolutely forbid any grandson of mine named Judas.
Oh, yeah? Ask her about the book of the Bible that's named Judas. Because that's something. I mean, it's right before Revelation. Right here, let me pull it up on the so that some of those can see it. It's right before Revelation. We call it Jude. Not to be mistaken with the Beatles song, but Jude. The other text of it is, if you read the Greek text that's used of it, that they translate to mean Jude, is Judas. And in fact, if you read elsewhere, Luke 6:16, which it says here in John Gill's commentary, that the author of this epistle is the same who is elsewhere called Judas. Luke chapter 6, verse 16 says, and Judas, the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot. So in other words, Judas, this is the brother of Jesus. And if the brother of Jesus is named Judas, wouldn't that be another good reason to be called Judas? For that reason, not to be with the one that betrays you, but one of the disciples, as well as one that is a brother of Jesus, which is also a brother of James. I mean, right there, folks.
Oh, that's an evil name. That's the evil name. He betrayed Jesus. He backstabbed Jesus. And,
Judas Iscariot did, not Judas, the brother of James.
Do you want him to be the butt of all jokes? Don't be a Judas.
Exactly right. And that's the thing. It gets all these jokes and everything like that come from when some people don't know that much about their Bible. That's why there's bad this what like Michael Heiser pointed out in his book that had come out, that bad interpretation really does hurt people. Look what the KKK did. They had a bad interpretation of the Bible, and look what they ended up doing. You have the Black Hebrew Israelites now, the people that, like that guy that just messaged me, the Sapphira guy, said that I was, pull the quote up again, that he, I'll be his slave in the future. He calls me an Edomite, and all this sort of stuff. So he's like, just into that. Yeah, it's something else, I'll tell you what. In fact, that's the thing. He even has a poster set for me. Let me see here. I'll just share that. It's a JPEG, and I'll put it in the thing, because this is what he just put on his chat, that he's trying to say, let's go right now. And I'm gonna put it here on the general chat so that y'all can see it. So JPEG. Okay, right here. So this is what this Black Hebrew Israelite guy put me. So it says Israelites versus Edomites. Of course, out of first Bible thing there. And I think that's the Mayweather versus what's that other guy? Connor or McGregor or something. That I said that the black person is Jacob and white person is Esau. And so it's time to fight and destroy somebody. So yeah, it's this kind of vitriolic racism that's harmful, as we can see demonstrated.
The whole thing about the name was that every one of my first cousins, every one of my uncles, every one of my cousins' kids, in one way or another, they are all named Paul. And I wanted to break that tradition if I were to have kids with my wife, but we didn't have any kids and we got divorced. So that's a whole other mess. um, but I was like, I am not naming my kid Paul. I am not doing that. I'm going to break the tradition. And she kind of sort of brung me from 100% I'm naming him Judas to 50% because, okay, maybe they will make fun of him. Maybe they'll make memes about him or something. And I'm like thinking to myself, me growing up in the 80s with my real name. I should really think this over.
Well, that's what I would say, that, you know, you would just teach them to just ignore that kind of stuff. Because I was being made fun of for a lot of stuff. Like in middle school, I was called Bobby Jindal Jr. because I looked a lot like the governor of Louisiana during the time. And people would just keep saying that, and I'd get frustrated. But my stepmom always told me, don't ignore them because that's what they want. They get energy and you're just fueling their hunger whenever you do that. So don't give into it. Just ignore it. You let them starve out, and they're eventually going to get tired and move somewhere else. Needless to say, that happened, and it worked like a charm because they just went to other people at that point. They were just trying to get a cheap laugh. In fact, sometimes I even made fun of myself as it, just to tick them off even further.
Don't give them the satisfaction of showing aggravation.
Yep. And also, if anything, also teach them where there's two Judases. So that way, if there is a discussion that has to break down with it, then he can point out in the Bible and make that person then look like an idiot because they don't know the fact that there's two Judases. So that's how I would definitely get around with it. In fact, that's the thing. I might just name one kid. If I had two kids, there would be male. I would name one James, and I would name the other Judas, and then name it because of Jesus' brothers. And get that whole thing going. So if anything, I'll have to start that tradition.
If I had two boys, I'd name them Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, that cartoon. That was awesome. All right. Well, thank you for the question there. Okay, so Sproul Jr. mentions John Piper's book, The Future of Justification, which, let me see here. Is that a book, though? John Piper denies justification by faith alone. So, defense of some of his comments. So, let's see. So, unless there was like a quote I could look at, then that would be something. One becomes right with God. All right, so by faith alone, but does not attain heaven by faith alone. So let's see here. Okay, so what's he say? It seems like he's teaching justification in this life by faith alone. Yet when we get to heaven, it is by works we are justified. Okay, so that kind of then sums it up. Well, he would have to show from the Bible where that's the case, and I don't see where it talks about that, of being justified by works in the Bible. And to me, because to be honest, Piper is weird when it comes to some of the things he says. He's definitely like very kind of charismatic and spiritual when it comes to some of the stuff he says. So, yeah, I just, so it's definitely probably a very bad response from Piper, because according to the thing he's saying that Piper wrote a book or something like that in response to N.T. Wright and the New Perspective on Paul. Now, granted, Piper is right on some things. This issue, though, on justification is something that really needs some thing there. Oh, yeah, by the way, mentioning this because he is talking about it. So apparently there's a challenge that Max Colby of Red Pill Religion is having, because besides the conversation that we're hoping to have in the future on Calvinism and sola fide, he says he has a challenge for me. Since he is going to take he's going to take his time looking at the challenges I provided from the church fathers that believe in sola scriptura, and check with friends of the deeper into patristics. He says he has another idea for a stream that we could do, where we and others in the circle, meaning of y'all, so like anyone that's on here that, and of course he calls anti-Catholics. So basically just anyone that's, not Roman Catholic and is not for the Roman magisterium might find something to agree with Catholics on. So he says, I would like to have a conversation with your audience about what the real threat, which I think he meant to say is threat. He said, what the real threat from the atheist movement is. Now, keep in mind, this is red pill religion speech now here. Said the real threat from the atheist movement is, and why I think we should all be taking it more seriously. For while it is dying in the public, it is growing in academia, and we are all in quite a bit of danger if we don't do something. I'd like to talk about that sometime and set aside the theological differences while I check on it and pray on it. Well, okay, so here's the thing. So, does anyone want to have a discussion on that with Max that's in here that is on the theological side? Okay, I assume James is still out. I
think it'd be interesting to hear about, but I don't necessarily, I'm not experienced in debate, so I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't do a discussion about it in a recording, just because not that, I don't think I'd be ready to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I am interested in the topic a little bit.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens, what other people say, because we got this out there, so at least something's there. But here's what I want to point out. Okay, so it's dying if it's growing in academia, and we're in a bit of a danger if we don't do something. What's the danger? What do you think is going to happen, honestly? Secondly, they're already being done something about it. Have you not seen the Christian debates that are being engaged with on this? Recently been with David Wood, some people with William Lane Craig. James White has engaged with one of them, David Silverman, and various others that are out there engaging with these atheists. And in fact, tonight was the debate that happened between a good brother in Christ by the name of Jonathan Sheffield, with a lot of people that may be familiar with it. Anyone is familiar with Robert Price, who is a atheist Bible scholar and a Jesus mythicist who has a lot of interesting things to say about the the whole thing about the Bible. Like, he claims that Paul was considered a false prophet by the Bible and all this kind of stuff. Let me see here. So yeah, that happened just according to this thing. It was streamed an hour ago, and they had that debate. So there's academics there where in academia someone debated an atheist, and that's continuously being done in modern day debate. Non Sequitur Show is another one that's having this stuff going on. So we just got like all kinds of stuff that's going on. And that's one way we're doing it. That's one way we're getting into it. But here's the other thing that I find problematic. You're saying talk about it sometime and set aside theological differences while he checks on it and prays on it. That's the thing. If we're setting aside our theological differences, we're setting aside issues that are important and essential to the issue. Because then, let's say we prove atheism is wrong. All right, who's right? The Roman Catholic Church or that of the sola scripturists, of the Christians? Because Roman Catholic Church has a different gospel than what we teach over in Protestantism. So we have a different gospel, and yeah, I really am wondering, like, where would to me, because we went over that in the discussion. There was the fact that we differ on sola scriptura, and in the next one that's come at some point coming up, sola fide is going to be the other issue. So these aren't issues that we could just set aside. These are important because this defines the religion. This is what separates the two churches, that makes them different. And so when we put aside our differences to go against the atheist then changes his mind and is to choose a path. And both the Roman Catholic and the Protestant are not on the same path. They have some similarities, no different than a Jew, a Mormon, a Muslim. They have the same kind of similarities in the comparison of a Protestant and a Roman Catholic. But there's the issue that there's essentials that divides us greatly, in the same way that the essentials divide us between the Muslims and all that. So as far as us forsaking our ground and everything, I don't think that's going to be possible with the people that you're asking, because we're people that want to believe what our faith teaches and not forsake it. In other words, stop being Christians for a bit. So I don't know. That may be the one thing that's going to be difficult to ask from some people, because that would be like me saying, Max, could you forsake your Catholicism for a bit as we discuss this? I wouldn't ask that of you, because that would be suicide.
Doesn't Scripture say, let there be no divisions among you?
Right, and let's go to that. So would that want to be your question then about that?
While we're on it.
All right, then let there be no divisions. So 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. So there's one there. And then, of course, we have 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 25. So let's go there. So for some of those that are watching on the YouTube, we will be having this at least on the display for y'all. So 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. So it says, now I beseech you, brethren, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that ye all speak the same thing, and that there be no divisions among you, but that ye be perfectly joined together in the same mind and in the same judgment. So concerning this, that he's talking to the brethren there at the church of Corinth, and that they speak the same thing, the same truths expressed in the same words, which show of the lawfulness, yea, necessity, this is of course Gil here, of confessions, articles of faith. So basically doctrine, the sound doctrine that is professed from the apostles, from the Bible, that is then to be understood. So the apostolic doctrine, the apostolic truths, that's what they are to be affirming. There is no disagreement or divisions on it, like there is with the Gnostics, like there is with the Judaizers at that time, and that there be no divisions, no schisms among you. So then continuing onward to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 25, which is the other one that says, there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care for one another. And as Gail points out, no complaint of one member against another, as useless and unnecessary, no murmuring on that account, no tumults and rioting, no rebellion and insurrection of one against another, no dissension, no division. The use Menicius Agrippa made of this simile, applying it to the bodily politic, as the apostle here does the spiritual body. The appeasing of a sedation among the people is well known and usually mentioned by the interpreters of this place. So the issue here is that, yeah, there should be no schism, but the fact is that a schism still occurred, and that it was because the Roman Catholic Church, or Rome specifically, decided to err in how they did things by slowly over time forsaking sound doctrine and adopting error into their church. Hence why the issue of the Pope being the vicar of Christ, being a later added doctrine, was introduced. Some of the doctrines of Mary, such as that Mary helped participate in atonement. And as Scott Hahn points out, that the point of Jesus wants you to know him so that you may know his mother. So that the whole point of knowing Jesus is to ultimately know Mary. So it's all about Mary, as even Scott Hahn, a Roman Catholic, admits. And
the whole point to know Mary is to know Jesus.
No, Scott Hahn says the whole point of Jesus is to know Mary. It's not the other way around.
It is the other way around in reality.
Exactly. So Scott Hahn, who wrote Angels and Saints, which is where the quote came from, is wrong about that. And that's what it is different with the issue of the Catholic Church. And in fact, the Catholic Church also teaches this about the Lord's Supper, that they affirm as their doctrine, and is due to a bit of the evolution that happened over time, that they believe that the sacrifice of Christ on the cross is no different than what is in the Eucharist, that when you eat the Eucharist, you are partaking in another sacrifice of atonement that is propitiatory, just like the propitiation of the atonement on the cross. And in fact, a Catholic scholar by the name of John Anthony O'Brien, in The Faith of Millions, The Credentials of the Catholic Religion, which was even sealed with a ordained, basically given the seal of approval by the Vatican and from the Pope himself, says, quote, when the priest pronounces the tremendous words of consecration, so the priest of the church, when he announces the words, he reaches up into heaven, brings Christ down from his throne, and places him upon our altar to be offered up again as the victim for the sins of man. Goes on to say that the priest then speaks, and lo, Christ, the eternal and omnipotent God, bows his head in humble obedience to the priest's command. No wonder that the name which spiritual writers are especially fond of applying to the priest, to the Roman Catholic priest, is that of alter Christus, for the priest is and should be another Christ. So according to this Roman Catholic scholar, who wrote something that the Pope of the time of 1974 decided to officially sign as, yes, this is binding and is very much in line with what we Roman Catholics think, is that the priest should be considered another Christ. So these are very big issues that are dividing us, and that's all because Rome took the first step in dividing themselves over that. So yeah, I would agree that there should be no divisions among us, but the fact is that there is divisions between them on these essentials that was started by Rome. And the Protestants are trying to get back to that.
And come to a compromise so there won't be any division.
If you compromise, that's basically saying, well, I don't, I believe this, but for now, I'm going to say I don't really believe that, which is kind of like lying. And to compromise is basically
does it really matter to you that most Christians accept free will?
To me, that's an adiaphora issue. To me, it's an adiaphora issue. I know there are Christians that don't accept my position in regards to free will, and they're still Christians and are not considered heretics in regards to it, because it's an adiaphora issue, no different than that of Romans chapter 14. There are some people that believe, okay, we're going to follow the dietary laws of the Old Testament, and there are some that will not follow that. And there are people that are saying that that's for them, and they're not going to compromise. They're not going to compromise at all, because the Bible says that it's permissible. It's not saying that it's a strict adherence to it, but things that are permissible in that regard. There is nothing permissible about viewing the cross as another sacrifice or atonement when the Bible makes it clear that it was paid for once and only once, finally, on that cross. And anything else is to add on to the teaching. In fact, that's what's interesting is actually in 2 John, the same guy that wrote, the Gospel of John, which says that, God so loved the world and everything. So if you go to it, and this is because the Holman Christian Standard Bible actually has the proper translation based off of the original Greek. So right here it says, watch yourselves, verse 8 of 2 John, so you don't lose what we have worked for, but that you may receive a full reward. Anyone who does not remain in Christ's teaching, but goes beyond it, does not have God. The one who remains in that teaching, referring to the biblical apostolic teaching, this one has both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your home, and don't say welcome to him. So verse 9 says, anyone who does not remain in Christ's teaching, but goes beyond it, if he goes beyond it, if he adds on to it, then he does not have God, according to Scripture, according to the same John who wrote the Gospel of John. It says John 3:16. So the Catholic Church has added on to it with their doctrine, including that they admit that there is nothing in Scripture necessarily concerning the doctrines of Mary, that must come from later Catholic Church fathers and the Catholic Catechism of the Catholic Church and the Council of Trent, that these different things come from later Roman Catholic councils, and that's how we get it. It's not from the Bible or apostolic teaching from there.
They weren't really Catholic until the schism.
Huh? What'd you say?
Huh?
You said they weren't really Catholic during the schism?
Until the schism, when they became the Catholics and then the Orthodox. They were one church before that.
Right, but even then, there is the Church of Rome that would slowly start to develop itself into a bit of its own schism from Orthodoxy. Not the Great Schism of 1054, but we're talking about a schism that occurs sometime in an estimation about the 4th to 5th centuries, when we're starting to see the doctrines come in, and especially from Rome. But in the 1st to 2nd century, we can at least attest that there is orthodoxy there. And that we have, for example, sola fide from supposedly the Pope at the time, Clement, even though he's not a Pope, he was a secretary of Rome, that according to him, we are justified by faith apart from the works of the law. We're not justified by our deeds. We're not justified by anything we do. We're justified by faith. That's why he mentions that. And so then the other issue is that, the depravity and the original sin nature that we have, whereas some Catholics are trying to get away from that, which is quite ironic considering the issue of the Catechism and the tradition that it has held on that, including especially St. Augustine. So the issue is that the Catholic Church has essential doctrines that definitely put it at par with what Rome teaches. And I've sent you stuff about this, especially from a guy that you revere as being knowledgeable on stuff about the Bible, exegetical apologetics, not just on purgatory, but even like the 8-hour documentary he made, as well as the clips he's put out in showing parts of it.
I don't got time.
Right, which is why I just got done saying, if you'd let me finish with it, the issue of the different clips he's put out from it. So because he knows some people won't watch the 8 hours, so he put clips out of it. And so the issue of the Catholic Church can easily be examined, and the problem is that, they have a different gospel. They teach justification by faith and works, not salvation by faith and works. It's justification by faith and works. There's the key word.
I know some Catholics you might like to talk to.
Right, we talked to Max the other day.
Yeah, you come across the Mauritian struggle or the distributists?
I was part of the distributist channel, and then I left there because it was nothing but a bunch of, honest opinion, just a bunch of trolls that really would have, in my opinion, put the Catholic Church to shame based off of the actual behavior of them and how the other saints behaved.
What, you debated them?
I hadn't debated the distributist or the, what's his name, whatever that. Yeah, whatever. The thing is, they don't seem to act properly. To me, the Catholic fusionist acts more like a proper Catholic in terms of the discussion we've had. And I've had debates with Catholics. Besides the fusionist, there was this other one that we did on a justification debate, which showed where the differences is and the different gospels that we teach. There is also the issue of what is easily able to be seen as Mariolatry in there. The fact that they basically are turning, even though they don't admit it or say it by themselves, that Mary is basically viewed as a god because of the attributes they decide to make for her. Alphonsus Liguori, a Catholic scholar who wrote The Glories of Mary, says Mary is the peacemaker between sinners and God. It's Jesus that's the peacemaker, not Mary, but they say Mary is the peacemaker. In Vatican II's Lumen Gentium, they call Mary the most holy mother of God, which technically there's nothing wrong there, but of course it implies what they exactly mean by that, as the Catechism goes into the statements on that. Then, of course, there's the infamous Marian apparitions in Fatima, Portugal in 1917. You've heard this before, where basically the people claimed that Mary appeared to them and said, "Are you willing to offer yourselves to God and bear all the sufferings he wills to send you as an act of reparation for the conversion of sinners?" So it says, Jesus wants to use you to make me, Mary, the mother of Jesus, known and loved. He wishes to establish the devotion to my immaculate heart throughout the world, and I promise, me, Mary, promise salvation to whoever embraces my immaculate heart. This is not me making this up. These are literal quotes that are coming from Roman Catholic documents, particularly Donald Anthony Foley's Marian Apparitions, the Bible and the Modern World, published in 2002, about the recordings of this event, about these people that were experienced and witnessed to by supposedly Mary. So Mary wants herself to be known and that she's offering salvation to those who embrace the Immaculate Heart, and that she'll never forsake you. My Immaculate Heart will be your refuge, and the only way that will lead you to God. So the only way that leads you to God is Mary's Immaculate Heart and Mary, according to what these people, these Roman Catholics, experienced in Fatima. And they're putting this out there as something that supposedly was said by Mary. Do you really think that the same Mary that gave birth to Jesus, who said and followed him and said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me," do you really think that's the same Mary?
I don't know. They later said that.
Right. To me, I'd say they were delusional and they experienced delusion.
Sure.
And so that helped pursue their falsehood and to promote this false doctrine about Mary.
I forgot. Was there some kind of sect that had God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, and Mary as the Trinity before the Holy Spirit came into play?
I forget there was one, but I know the Quran actually stated something about that.
Where at?
All right, let me get it. All right, the Quran and the Holy Trinity, Islam's mistaken views of it. So let's see here. Let me type in Mary. All right, so Surah 5, Ayah 73 to 75, as well as Ayah 116 is one of those. In fact, let's go to it. Surah 5, 116. And we're reading from the Sahih International. "And beware the day when Allah will say, 'O Jesus, son of Mary, did you say to the people, take me and my mother as deities besides Allah?' He will say, 'Exalted are you. It was not for me to say that to which I have no right. If I had said it, you would have known it. You know what is within myself, and I do not know what is within yourself. Indeed, it is you who is knower of the unseen.'" And so this was their view of it. So they, in the Quran, especially in Surah 5 and chapter 5, it holds this idea and interacting with Christian theology, which Surah 5 for the most part is engaging and interacting with Christian theology makes the mistake of saying that somehow people believe that Jesus and Mary, that somehow Jesus told people that Jesus and Mary were gods, which they're interacting with the whole thing there, and their misunderstanding of that, because they believe the Trinity means 3 gods, and they're wrong for that.
Oh yeah, did you happen to catch David Wood's KKK video?
Yes, I believe you saw that I did, and I responded to it with more videos on the immorality of the Islamic worldview.
No, I was just wondering if you actually watched it. That was hilarious.
I saw it.
Huh?
I saw it, so what's that got to do with this?
I don't know, it just random thought came.
Okay. So do you see where the problem, though, now is with the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestants? Where the divide is?
Yeah, they both have their problems.
All right, so then where would it be the Protestants' problem?
Huh?
Where would be the problem with the Protestants?
All that sola scriptura stuff.
Even though that's in the Bible?
Alright.
Alright, I mean, so that's it? Like, now it's no longer a problem to you?
I just don't feel like arguing. I'm tired.
Well, then why'd you come in here, then, if you're tired? No response?
What?
I asked if you're tired to argue, then why'd you come in here with all that?
Hang out, I guess.
Right, but you asked the question and said that why can't you just forsake and abandon your beliefs and compromise? And that's trying to ask a very interesting question in regards to like saying, you know, why not, you know, work with, say, okay, so a person that is a Christian and a jihadist wanting to establish Islamic Caliphate, Sharia law, Muslim, both don't like feminism or atheism. Hey, I'll compromise my Christian beliefs to work with you and some of your compromising beliefs of Islam and Sharia. Let us work together to get rid of this stuff. Okay. And what do you think happens then? Is that something that you'd be okay with having there, to work with, to compromise with someone that is a jihadist Muslim that wants to see the downfall of democracy and establish the Islamic Caliphate?
No.
Why not? Isn't this a bigger picture, though, to get rid of atheism or the Islamic or the feminists? I mean, what's wrong with compromising?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about what you brought up with regards to what I was talking about. And saying, so you can't just compromise, because you were having a problem with me saying that we can't compromise with us Protestants and Catholics.
I don't know. I can't hear much. You're fading in and out.
All right, you said that there was no problem with Protestants and Catholics compromising.
Right.
But now it's a problem when it's a Protestant and a jihadist Muslim that wants the democracy of America to fall to establish the Islamic.
Why not just talk to the same Muslim?
Well, who says that? Well, who are you to determine that that person's not sane? Because there are people that are technically that are not.
Jihadis aren't exactly.
Okay, so there are some people though that are not going out and doing all these wars, but they support it. They don't have to go out and do this stuff. That's why I said that they want to see it.
Talk to the ones who don't support all those wars.
That's a very small minority.
No, it's not.
No, there is. You only have the estimation of people that will be in it that are going to be in the minority. But if you would ask them, especially over in Iraq and Syria, that though they're not a part of it and though they do not technically support some of the actions, they say ultimately what they're doing is something we shouldn't condemn. In fact, even Adnan Rashid, as he was trying to promote peaceful Islam, said that we shouldn't condemn ISIS, meaning you don't have to be in full support, but if you condemn them, oh, you do Allah and Muhammad a disservice to Islam. So,
well, that's just too bad.
So exactly. So you don't have necessarily people that are going about with all this stuff. They can say peaceful because there are different stages of jihad. So you don't have to be a warmonger jihadist to do this stuff because you have stealth jihad, defensive jihad, and offensive jihad. So, and then you have taqiyya, another aspect.
You can't compromise with people who don't want to compromise.
Exactly. And the Bible tells us to not compromise. So I'm going with the Bible.
It also says, let there be no division.
Exactly. So why did the Catholic Church decide to divide from us?
You didn't decide to divide. People just divide it because they disagree with each other.
Right, because they decided to go after their other doctrine, false doctrine with itching ears, and to forsake sound doctrine. The Bible talks about that.
Humans are incompetent.
Right, so the Catholic Church is incompetent?
No, I said humans are incompetent. That's why there's always different denominations.
Okay. So but the fact is that there's different denominations is the fact that there are some people that are trying to go and seek the truth and come to different conclusions on things. That's why some of these differences in the denominations aren't essential issues. They're, again, adiaphora issues that is no different than what you read in Romans 14. It's no different. And so when we go to that and see that there's a allowance to do different things, hey, that's fine. That's okay. But when it comes to the issue here, they are forsaking essential issues, forsaking sound doctrine that is clearly laid out in the scriptures. And as Brother Jay, who is a Christian apologist and is someone that especially deals in apologetics against the black Hebrew Israelites and their racism, since this guy used to be a black Hebrew Israelite, and if you saw the documentary where he's in it, and he has a section about this, and in fact even has the interview where I just ask him the question. It's not movie or at all, just interview with him. The question was about the Roman Catholics, and he says that if he was to team up with them, that's kind of like fighting against himself, to just simply try to team up with somebody to try to do something, because then it's like teaching a different gospel and fighting against yourself to get involved in that. Also, welcome, Tiger Twist.
Hello.
Hello. So when it comes to the issue that because this is what bothers me. It's like every time you mention that there's White Engine, that every time you mention that there's this thing here about, okay, why do you stop? Y'all need to stop fighting and just get together on this stuff. But I told you where the essentials are. But instead, you just say that we're incompetent, that we are.
No, I said humans are incompetent. They're fickle. But aren't we?
Much. But aren't we, the Protestants and the Catholics, human as well?
Yeah.
So then we would be incompetent by your reasoning there. So because of that, then that's how you simply dismiss it. Instead of, okay, if that's the case, then how do we ultimately determine truth? That should be our goal there.
By coming to compromise.
So compromise to come to a truth?
And investigating it together.
Okay, but that's the thing. Compromise means forsaking certain truths that you are believing is true.
No, it means set aside your differences and focus on what you do agree with.
Right, and these differences are essential. They are basically on the differences and interpretation of truth.
You believe there is one God, that Jesus died for your sins.
Yeah.
Go from there.
Right. Okay. They believe we are justified by faith and works. The Bible is against that. The Bible is against justification by faith and works. It is by justification by faith alone.
Yeah, Jesus is the Savior of mankind. You all agree on that.
Right, and they believe that we are justified by faith and works, which I told you 2 John says that's adding to it. And the people who add to it, according to John, in 2 John, in Scripture, they do not have God. It's right there in the text. And not only that, the Catholic Church and the book that's been ordained as, approved by the Pope of 1974 says that the priest who is altering the bread in the Eucharist, basically they believe that's him pulling Jesus Christ down from the throne, and the priest is another Jesus. He's another Christ because of the name Alter Christos that is used in the Latin, and that the bread is an atoning sacrifice that's propitiatory, and also the raised up from.
Wouldn't the Pope be more like an intercessor?
That is, if he's actually receiving these intercessions to begin with. That's presupposing that. When it's demonstrated that papal infallibility is wrong, as well as some of the issues of the doctrines that he is promoting, which are false. So, I mean, you can say he's an intercessor, but you have to demonstrate that he's actually getting these from God. Because the stuff that he's claiming that is from that is nowhere found in the Bible. And if it was actually from God, then God's contradicting himself. Anything? Engine, you there? All right. So then thank you for that. All right. So we did go a little bit later than we usually are with our show time. So we'll see if, let's see if there's anything in the live chat. No. Just more the interaction between Wild Heart and Ken. So we'll see actually, because we're gonna try to see if we can milk something out from our friend here. Just a question. So because this says normally not the type of thing, but of course we answer any kinds of questions. We already had silly ones. We've had, of course, the usual Christian Bible questions, and of course we had a full 10 minutes just going over voice acting and me doing various different voices out of nowhere. So Tyga Twist, the Christian Ferg friend of mine, that at least that's from the server or chat room that we were at. Do you have a question? And again, that's why I mentioned the things earlier. Can be pertaining to the Bible, it can be pertaining to Christianity, or pertaining to anything you have in terms of any syllabus. Okay, so it's not currently. All right. Well, at that point, then I guess we're going to be tuning off soon. So I just want to make one thing. The reason I'm so lax with the time at the moment is because we're not going to be doing the apologetics school thing. Because the whole thing is just the issue is that there's going to be a storm that's going to be coming in tomorrow, and it's going to be bad. I'm talking really bad. I'm going to get some sleep, and I'm going to wake up in the morning, and I'm going to go to work as early as I can and stay there to help get some coverage, especially considering that there's not much of a chance of hail, but we're going to be having bad tornado warnings. Chances from how they described it, multiple tornadoes are going to be within the area. So we'll see if I can survive that. And if it just turns into the apocalyptic wasteland by the end of it, then I'm going to be armed with a shotgun and scrounging for food. Or better yet, just get a crossbow and act like my name was Daryl from Walking Dead. What the? Oh yeah, also Tiger Twist has just informed me that there was a shooting in the college town of his an hour ago. At least 2 were shot. So if anyone could pray for those that are there. Okay, there's the story. Carbondale, shooting in downtown Carbondale on Friday evening resulted in the multiple injuries. So everyone, if you can, please offer some prayers and support, or at least your thoughts if you're not religious, for those that are over there. But until then, also keep in prayer for me as we go about with this whole thing with the storm, because it's kind of funny that, the things like I've had to deal with tire issues and all that stuff. Now this happens that, a week before I go to Baton Rouge for Louisiana. So and you got to wonder if this will be the thing that'll take down the car or anything like that. There'll be my transportation to get there. So we'll see. I'll be praying to God while I'm there, and just keep in mind for me as we do that. So until then, this will be RC Apologist signing out, and y'all have been a wonderful crowd there. I'm deafening myself here for the people on Discord as I carry us out on the YouTube live chat, so some of y'all might want to interact if y'all want to, because there'll be an after show, of course. But yeah, just do all of y'all just be y'all and interact and chillax and shalom, you know what I'm saying? So till then, take care. This has been the man, RC Apologist. Take care.